Hello guys, we are back in new fanfic, and if enjoying this then please share and like part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. 2 months later in a tree house in Wave. Ah, come on sensei. We all know he is going to betray us, Naruto whined. Shut it kid. Gato is the only ticket in town, Guzu explained to Naruto. Naruto huffed and looked him straight in the eye. And what will we do when he betrays us, which all three of us stupid brats keep on telling you? Please sensei, he will use us and then turn us over to the Mizukage, or we will die another way. Let's just wash our hands of him or free the people. Naruto pleaded. What do you say if? Nah, Gato will be arriving soon, Zabuza stated. A short rotund man walked into the tree home with 2 samurai. Look at the great demon of the mist sitting here, while I pay him to the bridge builder. He just left a few days ago, I am sure he is going to get some help. Also, why you keep the kids? They appear useless. Gato asked. They are my tools and advise me, along with making sure that the job gets done. As for paying me, you have yet to give me 1 BU in payment for the last 3 jobs, let alone the bridge builder. I'm getting impatient at waiting for at least some of the payment, Zabuza proclaimed. I want your word that you will him, Gato demanded. Zabuza looked at the man. Barring any screw-ups, he is a dead man. So why are you strangling this country? Zabuza asked. I can, so why the sudden interest? You're just the hired help and couldn't understand what it means to rule people, Gato retorted defensively. Naruto perked at this, as he continued to work on pushing chakra into a glass of water. Hinata and Haku both looked at Naruto and nodded. Look at the brats just looking stupidly at a glass of water, one of the samurai commented, as Naruto shook his head and grinned. A good shinobi hides his true strength until it is truly needed, Naruto whispered, as both girls just nodded agreement. Shut it scum, he already has a problem with concentration, unless you want me to you now, Zabuza threatened. I want that man dead, as he's building a bridge that will destroy my plans. Now get to it, Gato threatened, as he summoned his thugs to him and left the house. Demon brothers, go get Tazuna now, Zabuza said, as he heard several thuds in the door. Water style. Water needle jutsu, Naruto proclaimed, as Zabuza saw water-shaped Senbon slowly fall into a puddle at the door. He also noticed the holes dug into the door. So you finally got that jutsu. Can you do hidden mist any better yet? Zabuza asked. Yes, but I need either high humidity or a lot of water around the area. While Haku and I have continued to work hard on my chakra control, it still is pretty pathetic, Naruto admitted. The demon brothers left the house and headed for the trail of Tazuna. I believe that Naruto-kun is correct, the man is going to betray us, Haku admitted. Naruto smiled, but also cleared his throat. Zabuza-sama, Naruto stated, as Zabuza turned his attention to Naruto. You have said that you hate the Mizukage for what he has done to the water country and to the village, Zabuza nodded at Naruto proclamation. Naruto then continued, well, would you allow something like what Gato is doing here to happen in the water village, if you were Mizukage? Zabuza pondered his options, as Naruto had proven time and time again that he wasn't an idiot just untrained. Time and time again Naruto had shown that being an unfeeling tool was not as good as a driven and focused shinobi. He also knew that Haku was beginning to develop feelings for the Gaki, and he wanted to make sure that it would not conflict with the ultimate goal of making him Mizukage. No, I wouldn't, it wouldn't be beneficial to the village or the people to do what he is doing. Naruto smirked and Zabuza knew he would be in for trouble. Well then, you say you need financial backing to take the role of Mizukage. Why not rid the earth of the scum of Gato and take his business and then use it to benefit your rise to becoming the next Mizukage? Naruto asked with a chuckle. You would have me go against an employer? Zabuza queried, as Naruto nodded. Why? Naruto sighed. I may not be as smart as either of them, Naruto said, as he pointed at Haku and Hinata. But, I do know what's right, and what a cage should do. If you take an evil client and know he will betray you, I see no problem with eliminating the client and taking what he has to benefit the rest. Naruto stated, as he went through several hand seals and a fog fell over the room. Hidden mist jutsu. Not bad, Naruto, but how many times have I told you not to practice that jutsu in the house? Zabuza stated and rolled his eyes. You do make a good point, though. Here, I'll make you a deal. If the demon brothers fail, we will see what type of person this Tazuna man is, and then I will decide if we want to go with your idea, okay Gaki. The mist cleared, showing 3 happy teens, Naruto with a huge smile on his face. So do we work on the next step in my swords training, sensei? Naruto inquired, as Zabuza nodded and led the group out of the house. Haku and Hinata giggled, as they knew Naruto was going to be heavily bruised tonight and they could use the herbs they had gathered earlier to help in his healing. They did enjoy their time healing Naruto. 3 hours later, Naruto was being dragged in on Haku and Hinata's shoulders, as they placed him on his bed and proceeded to disrobe him. As usual, Naruto-kun pushed himself almost too far, Hinata admitted. He pushes himself because of you, Hinata-chan, Haku admitted, with a dejected look on her face. Hinata turned Haku's face towards her with a finger on her chin. No, Haku-chan, he does it for both of us. He also likes you too. He does not understand the meaning of love, well, true love, and we have both found a place in his heart. For what it is worth, he loves both of us, and I wouldn't mind if we were both married to him. I could look to you as an older sister. He wouldn't want to hurt either of us, and thus he is troubled at who he should choose, as he doesn't understand that he could have both of us as wives. Unless you want to break his heart, and have a fight with me over him. Hinata admitted to her now good friend. Haku nodded. Until he is of age, we will agree to teach him about love, and then we marry him when he is old enough. I would prefer to share the boy that I have come to love, as much as you have. Now let's fix him up. I know he heals very quickly, but Zabuza-sama didn't go easy on him today, Haku commented, as she pulled a jar of healing balm from the shelf. Both girls applied the balm to Naruto's injured body. Does he have a Kekkei Genkei? I mean, his healing ability is quite remarkable. Hinata thought about it, but wasn't sure if the healing was due to the Kyuubi or a bloodline that Naruto had, or maybe even both. I'm not sure, as he has not allowed me to disclose the information about his parents to you and Zabuza-sama as of yet, Hinata replied. Naruto groaned, as he continued to sleep. The girls pulled a blanket over him to make sure he didn't catch cold and headed out for their own training. While Naruto had gone from tree climbing to water walking in only a month, his chakra control was still very poor. The girls showed perfect chakra control and were able to do both with more proficiency than before, and with Naruto and Zabuza pushing their chakra capacity to nearly double what it was before, as Hinata could do a single shadow clone and have it do a single attack or defensive jutsu without worry of chakra exhaustion. Haku could maintain her ice mirror jutsu for nearly an hour while training with Naruto. Zabuza found that Naruto pushed him also, and was able to improve his own fighting abilities and chakra capacity. The demon brothers had kept mostly to themselves after they had insulted Naruto when they first met. Flashback. Naruto walked between Hinata and Haku, as they approached the new house they were going to live in. Zabuza told them that the demon brothers would be joining them there while they worked for Gato, as bodyguards or special assignments that he wanted them to do. Naruto noticed a couple of chakra signatures to his left and drew his kunai as Haku giggled at Naruto. 2 men burst from the brush as Naruto pulled out a second kunai ready for battle. Zabuza, why did you get a couple more brats? I mean, Haku is bad enough, do we have to work with 2 more ninja wannabes? Naruto stood his ground in a defensive posture as Hinata took up a similar posture. What did you say, you jerk? Naruto demanded, with a growl. Both leapt at Naruto, who just sidestepped them and put a kunai to each of their throats. I may be a punk, but at least I'm trying to improve my abilities and I didn't underestimate my opponents. What do you have to say now? Guzu sighed and lowered his hands in defeat. I'll admit you are not bad, for a genin level shinobi that is, but we didn't see anything from the other boy. He looks really weak. Mizu suddenly disappeared only to have his claw blocked by Hinata's kunai. Naruto was now holding a log with his kunai and Mizu had attacked Hinata from behind. His reactions are acceptable, but he still needs strength training. Zabuza, Mizu commented. Having been bested or tied with a genin had angered the brothers, only caused them to stay away from the three children. This suited them fine, as they wanted to train away from the brothers. The brothers again and only a day later had gotten on Naruto's bad side, when they had shown him a girl they had kidnapped from Water Country and were going to use her for both pleasure and ransom. Naruto's eyes turned red with slits for pupils and he proceeded to beat the brothers into the ground only to be stopped by Zabuza, who freed the girl and sent her on her way. The brothers took 2 weeks to heal and would not go near Naruto. Since Hinata and Haku always kept close to him, they avoided them too. They decided had to stay away from all of them. Zabuza had assumed it was an animalistic bloodline, so he didn't ask any questions. Why should he? He had 3 pupils with bloodlines and might, after he married them, get mixtures of Naruto's and the girls' bloodlines in his grandkids. End flashback. 2 weeks later, a messenger bird told the group that the brothers had been defeated and thus another visit from the annoying employer Gato. You have failed me, Zabuza. Your demon brothers were defeated and now the bridge builder is on his way here, Gato complained. Naruto, Hinata and Haku edged behind Gato's samurai guards and took defensive positions. Zabuza swung his sword and nearly hit Gato's throat. I promised you that I would get him, but you also promised me that you would pay me. I have seen no payment and lost 2 mediocre tools. I will go see what it is with the people that guard the bridge builder, and if I deem it easy enough I will him for you. Now get out, Zabuza exclaimed. Gato wiped the sweat from his brow. You better not fail me or I'll bring in someone here who can do the job, Gato threatened, as he left with his guards. Just after he closed the door he turned to his guards. Remind me to call the Mizukage after he leaves to the bridge builder, so that we can get rid of him and not have to pay him, Gato stated, as he and his men laughed while they left the area. Naruto had his ear to the window and scowled. Zabuza-sama, he is going to betray us, even if we succeed, and he's going to contact the Mizukage and turn us in. We all know what will happen, he will send hunters and we will have to run. I was hoping to get back to Konoha and prove we're good enough to be genin, Naruto stated with a dejected look. Zabuza laughed. Let's go meet this bridge builder and see if it is enough for us to remove Gato from the picture, Zabuza stated, as the group nodded and left the house. A day later the 4 were watching a group of 5 walking through the forest. Naruto pointed at each and began to speak. Let's see, I mean Sasuke Uchiha, the one with the permanent scowl and duck butt hair. I still don't like him. The pink-haired one is Sakura Haruno. I can't believe I actually liked her. That was before Hinata-chan and Haku-chan showed me what it meant to actually be accepted, Naruto commented, as both girls blushed. The third genin, I have no clue, as he wasn't in our class. I would either guess an older genin or higher-ranked ninja who is playing nursemaid to the Uchiha brat. Haku and Hinata both giggled at Naruto's derogatory explanation. The silver-haired guy, I have no clue, sorry sensei. Zabuza handed Naruto a book and opened it to a particular page. Girls disappear and Naruto, you read this out loud to get their attention. You can also tease your former classmates if you like, Zabuza stated with a bit of mirth in his voice. Naruto cleared his throat loud enough for the 5 to turn towards him. Kakashi Hatake, also known as the copycat ninja, or Sharingan Kakashi. Known for being former Anbu with Konohagachure no Sato, and I'm guessing you would happen to be their current sensei. Sasuke Uchiha of the Uchiha clan, the only person in his clan to survive a massacre of his clan by his brother Itachi, he is also known for his distaste of girls and emotional instability. Oh, and I forgot his superior attitude. Sakura Haruno, best in class in book knowledge, but her practical skills were basically nil. Last member of your team is a mystery. Finally you, sir, must be the man the Gato fears so much, Naruto proclaimed loudly. The group looked up at Naruto, who sat on the branch reading the book that Zabuza had handed him in plain view. It took a minute for it to register with Sakura that this might be Naruto. He wore black shinobi pants along with an orange, white and black, tiger-striped shirt, with a sword slung over his back. He also wore extra weapons pouches on each leg, and 2 wooden handles sticking out each side of his lower back. Naruto! Sakura yelled. What are you doing here, you baka, and why are you insulting Sasuke-kun? Naruto laughed at the question. I'll tell you why, Sakura. I'm on vacation and he has no sense of humor. He believes he is the best, but I know a secret, Naruto teased. Naruto jumped down and walked towards the group, with his hands held wide, and then looked at Tazuna, as he said, but first, I have a question for you, Tazuna-san. Tazuna nodded. What is your question, kid? What would you do if you were free of Gato? Naruto asked. I would bring prosperity back to Wave and hopefully bring back happiness into my grandson's life. Gato and his thugs my son-in-law because he stood up to Gato, Tazuna explained. See, told you sensei, Gato is an evil jerk. Naruto yelled over his shoulder. Naruto continued to close the distance with his arms still held out wide. He continued to speak. If we get rid of Gato and give the village half the spoils, will you tell no one we were here? You want to get rid of Gato? If you do that, we would do anything you want, well within reason, that is, Tazuna stated happily. Naruto? Kakashi asked, as he moved in front of Tazuna. Who is your sensei and why are you here? I know who you are, but not why you're here. Naruto sat down on the ground and produced a foxy grin and a set of cards. He then said, well, you see, Hatake-san. Zabuza Mamachi is my sensei. We currently have an equal number of shinobi that you have, but we also were sent here by Gato to Tazuna here. I told sensei that Tazuna would make a better ruler than Gato, because he wouldn't use the same thuggish tactics Gato enjoys. You mean the demon of the mist is your sensei? Kakashi asked in surprise, as he took a defensive stance. Why would you allow yourself to be his student? He's a monster. Naruto's eyes narrowed, as his voice turned cold and asked, like the village thinks I am. A surprised look crossed Kakashi's face. Naruto, we can't have that type of discussion here. Where is your sensei? Kakashi asked in a very nice tone, but also put enough seriousness in it to let Naruto know he was watching him. He will only come out if you attack me or you agree to a ceasefire, if only temporary, Naruto stated with a serious tone. Sasuke walked in front of Kakashi and turned his back on Naruto. You're not going to take him seriously, are you? He was the dead last in class, while I was Rookie of the Year, Sasuke proclaimed, as Sakura clasped her hands and had hearts in her eyes. You're also less, the third member of the team stated without emotion. I like him, Naruto commented happily, as everyone jumped at seeing Naruto standing just behind Sasuke. Also never turn your back on a possible enemy. That is the last advice I will give you, at least for the moment, Naruto stated with a smile. You dobi. Sasuke turned and threw a punch at Naruto, who just twisted and avoided the punch. Sasuke got angrier and continued to throw wild punches. Stand still, dobi, and let me hit you. Naruto continued to dodge. I wouldn't want you to get in trouble for striking a civilian. Being a shinobi, it is a crime, unless I present a danger, Naruto pointed out, in a near sarcastic voice. Me being here and having stated peaceful intentions is more than enough to get you in big trouble. I also know the Hokage and he's still in trouble with me, Naruto proclaimed, as he continued his dodging. Sasuke, stop it. He is playing with you. He is also right. He has made no aggressive moves, as of yet, and I don't want Zabuza to you for attacking him, or worse for Naruto to you in self-defense, Kakashi warned. Good advice, as we gave you all the cards and you keep screwing it up. Tazuna-san, you might live if you call off your dogs before I have to them, Zabuza stated as he walked out from the woods. Tazuna nodded and looked at Sasuke. He then said, please Sasuke-san, stop attacking that kid. They are offering to help me. Sasuke stopped more from fatigue than from wanting to stop. What are you doing here, Dobi? Naruto grinned. Like I said, I'm offering to help Tazuna-san with his problems, as we know that Gato is going to betray us. Now back to Kakashi-san's question. Zabuza-sama gave us a choice: either join him or die. I kind of like living, and it couldn't be worse than how I was treated in the village. I even got some training out of the deal, Naruto explained happily. So she is here too? Kakashi asked, as Naruto nodded to behind the group. The group turned to see a girl with medium short hair wearing male clothes, white eyes, and a boy in a mist hunter mask standing next to her. Yes, Hataki-san, we are both here, Hinata exclaimed from her perch high on a tree. Ahayuga, Hinata, Sakura stated, as she looked closely at her. So the loser couple are here. I would watch your tongue, Haruno Ikaike, bitch, as we're not shinobi, but have been trained by one, a Junin, no less. From your stance you find me to be no threat, but I can assure you that you really are no threat to us, Hinata stated coldly, as anger at how she had treated Naruto came to the surface. What? Do you think you can hurt me? I am a kunoichi, Sakura stated as Hinata cut her off. You are a fangirl for the darling cheater of the village, Sasuke-tem, Hinata said coldly. What are you talking about? You both failed the genin exams, Sakura stated proudly. We failed only because we were set up. Tem there was also set up, but he was set up to succeed, Naruto stated from behind them, with a deck of cards playing with Zabuza. Full house. Damn it, Gaki, how do you always win? I know you don't cheat. Zabuza proclaimed, as Naruto shrugged. What do you mean set up? I passed my tests, Sasuke asked. Yes, and how do you explain your test being filled out for you? How about the nice new weapons you got for the exams and the magnets in the target dummies? How about cheating during our taijutsu match? Sure, you were better, but you went before the signal was actually given. I'm not complaining, as I got a lot better training than you apparently have gotten, Naruto stated smugly. You have a sword you'll cut yourself, Dobi, Sasuke said, as he pointed to the sword on his back and the two wooden swords at his side. Naruto stood and drew the practice swords and tossed one to Sasuke. Here, catch. Kakashi watched, but kept his stance. What is this, Dobi? Sasuke asked. A wooden practice sword, you idiot, so I don't the village's precious Uchiha. Now if you know your stuff, let's go, and I promise won't hit me, Naruto proclaimed. Sasuke grinned. Right, now I can wipe that smug smile off your face, he replied arrogantly. Naruto frowned. That was supposed to be my line, Tem, Naruto whined. Oh, by the way, you're holding it wrong. Now look what I've done, giving him more advice, he said in a dejected tone, as Hinata and Haku giggled at Naruto. Sasuke ran at Naruto. Naruto did a quick swing down onto Sasuke's sword, as Sasuke had pointed the wooden sword straight at Naruto, only to lose his grip on the sword, when Naruto sidestepped Sasuke's attack and slammed his sword directly down on Sasuke's. Naruto then picked up Sasuke's sword and waited for Sasuke to turn. Told you. Here, try again, he said, as he tossed the wooden sword back to Sasuke. Sasuke growled as he caught the sword and gripped it with two hands. I hate you, he growled at Naruto. Naruto grinned. I love you too, but I don't swing that way. I'm not so sure about you, though, Naruto stated, as he blocked several blows from Sasuke. He then ducked a blow and Sasuke got out of position. Naruto smirked and stuck his sword between Sasuke's legs only to have Sasuke trip and land on his face. See, I told you that you wouldn't hit me once. You can keep that sword if you like, but don't hurt yourself, Tem, he said in a teasing tone. So Tazuna-san, do you accept our offer? Hinata asked politely. Naruto-kun has been quite adamant about how it is to do the right thing. Joining a missing nin isn't the right thing, Kakashi stated. Making a missing nin turn over a new leaf, pun intended, is, Naruto stated with a laugh. Now Kakashi-san, are you going to relax or are we going to have to fight? Be warned, Hinata-chan and I have taken a life before and understand the pain involved with it. From what I can see, your students have not done so. Also know that both of us have a special spot in our hearts for two of your students. Kakashi's single evident eyebrow rose, and he asked, how so? Naruto pointed to Sasuke. Pretty boy here has been the bane of my existence. He was showered with gifts by the village while I, the pariah, by nothing had ever done. Sakura there had raised the ire of Hinata-chan because she wanted my attention, but Sakura would only beat me away again and again, for nothing I was ever responsible for. I never did such a thing. Sakura protested. How many times did Naruto-kun ask you out? Hinata asked coldly. How should I know? Sakura answered in her defense. There were 84 occasions that I witnessed. You either hit him or smacked him on 81 of those. The other 3 you berated and belittled him for not being as good as Sasuke-kun, she said, as the kun rolled off of Hinata's lips like poison. That's because Sasuke-kun is the best and a whole lot better than that loser, Sakura protested, as she pointed at Naruto. So you don't deny assaulting your fellow student for simply asking you out on a date? Has Sasuke ever accepted your advances? If not, did he ever hit you for asking? Haku queried in a flat tone. Sakura blushed, and then her brows furrowed. That isn't the point. Sasuke-kun is the best, she retorted. Hey Pinky, if he is the best then how come my student beat him by only playing with him? Zabuza asked. Tazuna shook his head, as this appeared to be degrading into a schoolyard fight between the class bully and the class defender, just he could not figure out who was who. Look, all I want is to bring back prosperity to this land and hope back to the people, Tazuna answered with a sigh. 4 aces, Naruto declared, as he showed his hand to Zabuza. So, if I can convince my sensei to leave you alone and take out Gato and his thugs, will use your half of the money to help this country? Naruto asked with a smile. Tazuna's jaw fell, as he asked, you would share his fortune with Wave? Naruto nodded. Why? Naruto smiled at Tazuna and then scowled at the Konoha shinobi. Because it is the right thing to do. Also, while I don't mind annoying the Tem, I don't want to burn the bridge to Konoha at this time, Naruto stated, as Kakashi was visibly shocked. Also, Kakashi-san, could you send for Kurenai-sensei? We have some business to discuss with her. What would that be, Naruto? Kakashi asked, not sure what to do, as he was not sure if Naruto and Hinata had been turned traitor. While we are civilians, well-trained ones at that, we are still civilians. The Hokage has annoyed me and I only trust a few people in Konoha right now, Kurenai-sensei is one of them, Naruto explained. Kakashi nodded, as he presented his hand to move the group towards its destination. Shall we go and discuss this on the trip to Tazuna's house? He asked. Naruto shook his head. Nope, we have some work to do first. We will meet you in a few days, if not sooner. We will present a gift to you, Tazuna-san, and if we find you have misused this gift, we will Naruto stated, as he collected the cards and jumped quickly away, he then vanished before their eyes. How did he beat me? Sasuke asked. No one in particular. You rushed into a fight you didn't need to engage in, for starters. Just because you're an Uchiha doesn't mean there aren't people who are stronger than you. You are still a genin, by the way, Kakashi stated. But Kakashi-sensei, how did Naruto become so strong in only a few months? He was dead last in the academy and failed the exams, Sakura queried. Either he hid his abilities, or he was held back by someone. Also, there are those who excel when pushed hard and are willing to learn. I hate to admit it, but hard work can sometimes overcome natural talent if those with natural talent become complacent, Kakashi answered, so that everyone could hear. Sasuke gritted his teeth at the comment. So are you saying I've been complacent? Sasuke growled through his teeth. Kakashi shrugged. Not necessarily. Naruto might just have found a teacher in Zabuza that he needed to excel. I'm only worried at what he has taught him, he said in a worried tone. Why is that, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked. Because, Naruto is a special individual in our village. He has a larger chakra capacity than all my students combined, Kakashi stated bluntly. Is his ego larger than less, here? Sai asked. Sakura threw a punch at Sai. Shut up, Sai. Sasuke-kun is the best. Apparently not. He was beaten by in both yours and his words, and I quote, the dead last of our class, Sai commented without emotion, as he continued to evade Sakura's punches. Also, are you sure you're a girl? You're too aggressive and have no chest. Sai's comment caused Sakura to rage even worse, and all Kakashi could do is sigh. The team quietly approached Gato's stronghold. Senbon appeared in Haku's hand, as the guards fell quickly at the front gate. I have disabled all the guards, Zabuza-sama. Zabuza appeared above one of the downed guards and pulled his kunai across the man's throat. You are still too compassionate, Haku. Naruto, take care of the other two while I this one, Zabuza ordered, as Naruto dispatched the other two thugs. They dumped their bodies into the dry moat. The group quietly moved through the building and it off all the thugs as they passed them. The building was becoming quieter and quieter as they passed through the building. They came upon the mess hall and made quick work of the 20 thugs in the room using the hidden mist jutsu along with silencing techniques. Haku made her firsts in this room. Hinata stayed with her to comfort her while Naruto and Zabuza moved into Gato's office area. 4 guards were stationed outside Gato's office. Naruto appeared in front of the guards with a smile. What do you want, kid? One of the guards asked, as they all pulled their swords out. Naruto scratched the back of his head and laughed as if embarrassed. Well, you see, Zabuza-sama sent me to report to Gato on the mission. So, can I meet with him? He asked. The guards all laughed. Give me the message and I will pass it along to Gato-sama, the guard replied. Naruto shook his head. Nope, can't do that. Zabuza-sama said that I had to deliver it to Gato-tem personally and to anyone who didn't let me see him. Also, you're outnumbered, Naruto stated with a smile as he crossed his hands and whispered, Shadow Clone Jutsu. What do you mean? There are 4 of us and only 1 of you. The man suddenly saw 10 puffs of smoke and now there were 11 exact copies of the brat in front of them. Clone Jutsu will not help you here, kid. Naruto grinned wide. They would if they were water or shadow clones, and guess what? They are shadow clones. All of them have my skills, and could you? So do I get to see Gato, or not? Naruto asked happily. One of the guards stepped forward. I know some things about ninjutsu and there is no way you could know the shadow clones jutsu. It is from Konoha and that jutsu is also a secret jutsu specifically from that village, the man explained. 2 of the clones appeared next to the guard and tapped him on the shoulders. Real enough? One of the clones asked. Naruto shrugged. Hey, I make them and they don't always obey. I would advise you let me through now or I will just go over your dead bodies. I have before, so what will it be? Naruto asked kindly, as the guards parted and led him through the door. Gato was at his desk with an angry look on his face. What the hell are you guys letting the brat in here for? He asked. He says he has a message from Zabuza, one of the 2 guards that accompanied Naruto said in reply. Okay, kid, what is your message? Gato asked with a smirk on his face. Naruto returned the smirk, as he disappeared and reappeared between the guards with their own swords drawn at their throats. I hate this part, Naruto commented, as he pushed the swords into the men's chests. Both fell dead. The message was that you were to give over your fortune and then we would let you live. The whole thing, as we know you should be able to rebuild it again. Naruto his head and smiled. So what do you say? Gato smiled, but was sweating. He then said, you know, kid, you have balls. You come in here and threaten me. You want my fortune. You couldn't do anything with it. Guards. Gato yelled at the top of his lungs. Zabuza opened the door and peeked in. You call for someone, Gato? Zabuza quipped, as Gato's jaw dropped. You see, your men are all dead, even the 2 idiots with mallets. So Gaki, what was his answer? Naruto shook his head. His only answer so far was to call for the guards. I know I got his 4 that were here, and between you and the other 2 I'm sure that they are all dead. So Gato Tem, what will it be? Sign over your fortune, or I could just say, forge your signature, and do it the easy way, Naruto said happily. Gato pulled out some forms and signed them. Here, take it all, just let me live, he pleaded. The money in the vault too? Naruto asked, as he pointed to the big picture on the wall of Gato. Naruto put his hand on his chin, as if to analyze the picture. I'm not sure they got your good side. Wait, to tell the truth, you don't have a good side. Gato grumbled at the jab, as pulled the picture to the side and opened the safe. He then asked, anything else you want? Naruto was sitting at the desk going over the paperwork. Gato shipping is hereby signed over to Tazuna of Wave to become Wave Shipping. Gato's 3 million in saving is hereby signed over also to Tazuna of Wave, and all properties in Wave are also be signed over to Tazuna of Wave. Interesting. Oh my, you didn't tell me you didn't. Naruto asked in a mocking tone. What are you talking about? Gato asked, not sure what document that the boy was reading. Sensei. He called the Mizukage in the day we left. Naruto stated, as he turned the paper towards Gato for him to see and wagged his finger. Too bad, I was going to let you live, Zabuza said, as he appeared behind Gato and deftly removed his head from his body with his sword. So we get it all, or did I him too quickly? He may have another million or so hidden elsewhere, but it would take weeks to find it, so not really. Let's get these documents back to Tazuna and get ready to leave. I figure the Hunter Nin will be here in about 3 days. Naruto stated, as he moved to the vault. He quickly sealed the contents. The 4 left the building after setting off some explosives but made sure that it didn't destroy Gato's body. 4 hours later, Kakashi became very alert as he moved defensively to the door only for there to be a knock at it. Who is it? Demons and friends bearing gifts. A happy voice came from behind the door. Kakashi began to open the door only to hear Sakura complain, you aren't going to just open the door, are you, sensei? Kakashi looked annoyed at the girl and opened the door to see Naruto with a huge smile, Hinata and Haku attached to each arm, with Zabuza standing behind them. So are you going to invite us in, or do we stay outside? Zabuza quipped. Sasuke scowled. Leave the loser outside, with his band of misfits. I didn't know you swung both ways, Dobi, Sasuke stated, as he noticed both people attached to Naruto's arms. Naruto smiled. At least I swing. You are afraid of what you could get if you tried, Naruto teased, as Sakura blushed at Naruto's implied comment. Like I have time to be chasing girls, but you seem to also chase boys, Sasuke retorted. At least he has and apparently he has attracted some people who seem to like it, Sai stated. Naruto looked at him quizzically. I'm not sure if I should be offended or proud. You are one strange kid. Now Kakashi-san, can we come in and finish our business with Tazuna-san? Naruto asked, as Kakashi moved out of the way and allowed the 4 entry into the home. Sakura stood, pulled out a kunai and ran at Naruto, only to be intercepted by Hinata, who placed her kunai on Sakura's throat. Kakashi-san, your student is impulsive and was going to attack my Naruto-kun. She will either cease her attack or she will cease existing. Sakura looked at the anger in Hinata's eyes and began to sweat. She put the kunai away and backed away. At least my Sasuke-kun isn't gay, like your Naruto baka. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Who said I'm active? I would also not go so far as to proclaim Sasuke-chan isn't gay. When has he ever accepted a date from any of the multitude of girls that followed him? Hinata-chan has asked me out on many dates and I have accepted. Haku has yet to ask, thus I can say that I have not had the pleasure of a date with Haku, and if going out with Haku makes you believe I am gay, then so be it, Naruto stated with full confidence and a shrug. Now Tazuna-san, I have some documents here for you to read and sign. Naruto yelled. Tazuna entered the dining room and sat at the table, as Naruto put a stack of papers in front of Tazuna. Tazuna's eyes went wide as he began to read. You're not serious, are you? Naruto nodded. You're now the title holder to Gato Shipping, now, Wave Shipping. You also are the holder of all of the business accounts related to said company. We currently have about 500,000 Ryo, but would like you to hold the 1.5 million in the business for us as shares in the company. Does that meet with your satisfaction? Naruto stated. Geez, that was a mouthful. I bet you didn't even understand what you said, Baka. Sakura ridiculed Naruto. Naruto ignored Sakura much to her annoyance. We need to wrap this up quickly, as Gato turned the hunter nins on us from the Mist Village, Naruto admitted, as he turned to Kakashi. So did you get a hold of Kurenai-sensei, Kakashi-san? Kakashi nodded, as he looked on, and Tazuna signed the documents. Yes, Naruto, she will meet you on the way to Konoha if you wish to head in that direction. I hear that your building was cleaned at village expense by several genin teams. Your other problem was also taken care of, for the most part. Naruto smiled at Hinata, who jumped up and down at the news. A clean house would be nice, she proclaimed. So who holds the paperwork, Naruto? Tazuna asked. Naruto smiled. That is the great thing, you do. Oh, and if the water shinobi ask, you don't know Zabuza-sensei, and Gato will no longer be a problem for you. Kakashi gasped, and asked, you didn't him, did you? Naruto shook his head. No, I didn't. Kakashi sighed in relief. Sensei had the honors, Naruto stated happily, as Sasuke glared at him and Sakura gasped. Naruto smiled and moved to Haku and Hinata. Well, Naruto, Uzumaki's work is done here. We will try to come visit sometime, Tazuna-san. See ya, Cyclops, Tem, Pinky and Ghost, Naruto stated as the group left the house. Sai looked at Kakashi. Why did he refer to me as Ghost? He asked. Sakura sighed and went into explanation mode. Just take a look at your pasty white skin and you can understand where his simple mind came up with such a lame reference. Sai smiled at the response. Several days along the road, Naruto was on watch, as he noticed a woman walking towards them. She was clad in what appeared to be loose bandages, a headband with blue color and dark black hair. Looks like Kurenai-sensei's here. Zabuza-sensei, you need to be on your best behavior or this will not end well, as she's a genjutsu specialist, he ordered. Naruto then raised his head and sniffed the air, and said, she's here. Haku and Zabuza looked around but saw nothing. So, is she a capable shinobi? Zabuza asked. Kurenai began to appear in front of the group on the other side of the fire, beginning with her head, and slowly the rest of her body appeared. I should hope so. Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan both seemed to sense my approach, Kurenai complimented, as she nodded to the children. I am Kurenai Uehi, Junin and Genjutsu specialist to Konoha. Who are you and why are you with my students? Zabuza growled, as Haku chuckled. Kurenai-san, we are Zabuza and Haku Momochi. We have been working with Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan for the last couple months and have freed Wave from the clutches of Gato. We are thinking of joining Konoha as shinobi, Haku stated, as she stood and bowed. Kurenai smiled and nodded to Haku, but then eyed Zabuza. You are not talking, demon of the mist? She asked in an annoyed voice. Zabuza laughed at the question. He then responded, not really, I promised the Gaki I would be on my best behavior, as he told me you do not suffer perverts and arrogant men lightly. Well, I'm both. So, I thought it would be better to let them do the talking and leave me to watch. Good enough for you, Ms. Uehi. Zabuza admitted. Kurenai nodded. I suffer perverts to a point, as I know everyone is one to some extent, or we would not have children. You understand that if you come with us to Konoha you will have to surrender your weapon and might even face jail time or worse, you could even be sent back to Mist. Kurenai asked in all honesty. Zabuza nodded. I'll do what it takes to make sure my daughter is taken care of. She possesses a Kekkei Genkai for ice and at this point in time is betrothed to Naruto here, along with Hinata-chan, Zabuza stated. He then raised a hand to forestall disagreement. And he had no choice in the matter. She likes him a lot and gets along well with Hinata-chan, so it will not interfere with their lives. He will just have to work twice as hard to keep them both happy, Zabuza commented with a chuckle. Kurenai raised an eyebrow and looked at Naruto. You know I will be keeping an eye on you to make sure you treat them right, do you not, Naruto-kun? She asked, as Naruto wore a dejected look, but nodded. Now I think you might be able to be a genin team with me, and possibly Zabuza as the Junin sensei. Zabuza sighed. That is nice and all, but we need to get going. I'm sure the hunters will more than likely be following us by now. We really need to get going, Zabuza proclaimed, as the group cleared camp and headed towards Konoha. Kurenai noticed several things. Naruto seemed happy, Hinata seemed more confident, and Haku seemed to want to be near both of them. Thanks for waiting, and thanks for the comments, yes, even the ones who seemed to be derogatory. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. Now to respond to some of your comments. Lord Martia. While I like your theory, Sakura wasn't much of a buffer. The only one I would have questioned on loyalty was Sasuke. Naruto was tried and true loyal to Konoha even for the wrongs set upon him. Also Sarutobi might have thought that giving Minato's son as a student to Kakashi might help him heal, my kind words towards the copy nin. It was just another boring day for both Kotetsu and Izumo, as they were on guard duty at the East Gates today. They had already gone over the possible strategies for repulsing a full-scale incursion from Iwagakure no Sato from the east no less. They had played over 50 games of Jenkin, rock, paper, scissors, with no conclusive results. They were by now completely bored and they still had an hour left on their shift. Izumo glanced down the road in an effort to not fall asleep. He noticed 5 figures coming up the road towards the village gates. He elbowed his partner, as they looked down the road. One of them was a large man carrying a rather large sword on his back. There was a woman who appeared to be familiar. Then there were what appeared to be 3 children about the age of most genin graduates. One caught their eyes in particular. He had a head crowned in golden blonde hair. Go tell the Hokage that he's back, Izumo said, as Kotetsu nodded and disappeared in swirl of leaves. Izumo got up and left the shack, which was basically his guard station, and moved to the middle of the gates. Halt and identify yourselves, he called out when the group moved to within 50 feet of the gates. Naruto shook his head. You have to be kidding me. You'd think they wouldn't have forgotten me so soon, Naruto said, as he sighed and cupped his mouth. Fine, it's Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Uzumaki, Kurenai Uehi, and guests, Zabuza Momochi, and Haku Momochi respectively, he yelled at Izumo. I can identify 4 of you, but I would like for Zabuza-san to set all weapons on the ground and step away from them. I would also like for Haku-san to do the same thing, so that Zabuza-san can be taken into custody for determination from the Hokage, Izumo ordered. Zabuza shrugged, as he put his sword on the ground, followed by a couple weapons pouches, and several scrolls. Haku also put her weapon pouches on the ground in front of her and moved behind Naruto. Zabuza looked at Izumo and shrugged, and asked, is that good enough? The Gaki told me this might happen. Several Anbu appeared around the group and put chakra cuffs on Zabuza. You're coming with us, Demon of the Mist, the bear Anbu ordered, as Zabuza offered no resistance and was led away. Zabuza looked directly into Naruto's eyes, as he was led away, and ordered, you take care of Haku, or else. Naruto smiled warmly and nodded, as Zabuza disappeared around a corner. So do we wait here or do we get to see Hokage-sama? Naruto asked playfully. Both Hinata and Kurenai didn't miss the anger in him calling the Hokage by his title. Kotetsu appeared next to Izumo and whispered into his ear. You can go see the Hokage, and Kurenai-san, he's expecting a full report, Izumo stated, as he moved aside for the 4 to enter. Haku had noticed the angry glances the villagers had kept giving the group. She deduced that they were angry at Naruto for some reason. Their earlier discussion had made her understand how she and Naruto were alike. In water country, bloodlines were hated and they would either the possessor or they would try to run them out of the country. Death was preferable for the people of water. She had asked why Naruto showed such deep hurt in his eyes, but he would never answer. Hinata had told her that Naruto was not liked very much because circumstance surrounding his birth, and that he would have to tell her himself. This had confused Haku, as she didn't understand why people would hate Naruto enough to give him as bad a life, as Hinata had described. She was not sure of this Kurenai woman either, but she seemed to be on the good side of Naruto and Hinata. So what can I expect when we meet the Hokage? Haku asked. Naruto chuckled, as he said, he's old. Naruto teased, with an annoyed look on his face. Naruto-kun, be nice. I know he wronged us, but he should be able to make some of it up to us by now, Hinata stated, as she also looked rather annoyed. Kurenai sighed. Naruto, Hinata, I know that he did do some things wrong, but are you going to hold it against him forever? Kurenai questioned. Naruto stopped in the middle of the road and looked directly at Kurenai. Kurenai-sensei, we both got the short ends of the stick, and he even added to our misery. Should all be forgiven so easily? Naruto quipped. Kurenai smirked and looked up. Well, you are engaged to two pretty young women, who are quite talented and they seem to be quite taken with you, she replied. She then looked Naruto in the eyes, and continued, if he had not done what he had done, he and Haku might be dead by now. Naruto sighed and lowered his head in recognition, and said, I guess you're right on that one. Kakashi might have Zabuza, and if he found out about Haku here, he might have ethered her or brought her back to the village as a trophy for breeding stock for her special gift, Naruto replied, as Kurenai nodded and Haku became angry at the possibilities of her being away from Naruto's protection, let alone his side, or even worse, as some breeding whore. Naruto allowed the females to enter the office before him and Haku entered just before Naruto, as if to show that she might be a boy, instead of a girl. Naruto inwardly smirked at Haku's antics. So Hokage-sama, I heard you wanted to speak to us when we returned, Naruto said in a bored tone. Sarutobi rolled his eyes, as he knew now Naruto had yet to forgive him. Sarutobi read the paper that was handed to him by Kurenai, as he began to acknowledge the people who had just entered his office. Yes, Naruto, I wanted to know how your vacation went with your lovely fiancé. I hope you haven't taken the dive into marriage just yet, Sarutobi teased, with a blush on his face hidden by the paper. Hinata sighed at this quip. She then said, Hokage-san, we are not ready to do that just yet. I see from this report and the other one that you were in league with the wanted criminal, Zabuza Momochi. Care to explain, Hinata? Sarutobi purposely wanted to get the information from Hinata, as she was more than likely be less angry at him. He was mistaken. Hinata glared at Sarutobi. She angrily replied, First, you accuse us of taking of the forbidden fruit of marriage, and then you accuse of willingly consorting with criminals. Haku was surprised that Hinata taking such a forceful approach with a cage. Sarutobi sighed, as he understood that putting Hinata on the spot wasn't the right choice. So then fill me in on what happened then, he asked in a pleasant tone. Hinata looked at Naruto who nodded. She then said, we had just finished collecting a bounty on some bandits on one of the coast roads when we ran into Haku and Zabuza. Naruto-kun decided to not look threatening when we saw the two of them, as he recognized Zabuza from the book Kurenai-sensei left with us, Hinata admitted. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow, as he looked at Kurenai, but only said, please go on. But the look on his face told Kurenai that she could expect a tongue lashing after this meeting. Zabuza-sensei, Hinata attempted to continue, but was interrupted by Sarutobi. Sensei, why are you referring to him as sensei? Sarutobi asked in an attempt to end his confusion. I was getting to that, Hokage-san. Zabuza-sensei recognized that we had training, but he also decided he would train us. He gave us little choice in the matter, thus the reason why we call him sensei, Hinata explained with an annoyed tone. You do understand that you spent time with a wanted criminal, do you not? Sarutobi asked, as both nodded. Sarutobi sighed, now are you ready to start the academy? Naruto began to snicker and Sarutobi raised an eyebrow, what is so funny Naruto? Well, if your Rookie of the Year is any indication of the skill of your genin, then you should send them all back to the academy with us, Naruto exclaimed. I'm not sure I want to know, but what do you mean? Sarutobi asked. Naruto-kun beat Sasuke Uchiha in a sword fight, with training swords, Haku explained. Sarutobi looked surprised and then looked at Haku, and who might you be? Haku bowed. I am Haku Momochi, Zabuza's adoptive child. I would also say that if you were to rank them, Naruto-kun is high-level genin, Hinata-chan is mid-level genin, and I'm low-level chunin in abilities. That is if you were to ask. Otusan is a slave driver, though, she admitted. And we work great as a team, Naruto proclaimed. I should hope so. With your future wife by your side, you should work well as a team, Sarutobi stated in attempt to get a reaction out of Haku. He could swear that he saw a blush from the boy. I must be getting old, Sarutobi thought to himself. Kurenai-san, I want you to do an assessment on these three to see if they make a good team, and I want a report by the end of the day tomorrow. After I get the report, I will decide if they are ready to become genin of the leaf. Also, I want to know why you were fighting Sasuke, Sarutobi ordered. Naruto smirked at this request. We were ordered by Gato to the bridge builder, Tazuna. I also heard Gato getting set to betray us, so I proposed to Sensei that we go meet this Tazuna fella and figure what is worth more, a man who asks us to do jobs, but does not pay us, or a man who just wants to rebuild his country. I convinced Sensei that if he followed Gato, that he would not make a good cage. So after trading some insults with my former classmates, Sasuke-chan and I played a little. Apparently your darling Uchiha-chan got his head handed to him by the dead last of the class. Don't worry, I didn't hurt him, well, other than in his pride, Naruto explained with a chuckle. Oh, and Gato is no longer a problem. So we performed your team's mission and protected the bridge builder. Do we qualify at Shinobi yet? Hinata asked. Sarutobi sighed. What happened to the shy little Hyuga girl we all knew and loved? He asked. Hinata and Naruto scowled at the Hokage. Hinata lifted the leather headband and pointed to the curse mark on her head, and yelled at Sarutobi, this is what happened to her. The Hyuga clan assaulted me and branded me, even though I was never supposed to receive it. You forget that we have both been hurt by that clan. Yet, you did nothing to either ease the pain or even believe us. We could also leave and go to another village, Hinata angrily proclaimed. Sarutobi coughed, but he said in his defense, even though I didn't visit after the assaults, I did worry about both of you. Naruto burst out laughing. You proclaim that you are there to protect the village, yet you don't protect it from itself. What if they hated me in the assault and go out? Naruto hinted, as Sarutobi noticed the confused look on Haku's face. So are you ready to go back to the academy? Sarutobi asked, attempting to change the subject, yet again. Let me see. No. Naruto shouted. Give me the exam right now. All three of us could pass it right now, and I swear if there is a genjutsu on my test I will break all the genjutsu within a mile radius, Naruto proclaimed, much to Sarutobi's surprise. Sarutobi nodded. Fine, go to the academy tomorrow with Kurenai-san and have the test administered. If you all pass then you may become a genin team. Naruto smirked. Okay. Hokage-sama. We will take the test and become a new team. Time to go home Hinata-chan, Haku, Naruto said, as he left the office, both girls right behind him. Sarutobi looked at Kurenai. So what is the story of the boy, Haku? Kurenai smirked at Sarutobi who raised an eyebrow. She is Naruto's second wife-to-be. Documents have already been filed in both Wave Country and here in Fire Country. Other than her being skilled and Zabuza's adoptive daughter, I haven't much information to give you, as the three of them were quiet on the way here. I know Zabuza did it to protect Haku, but I'm not sure why, Kurenai explained. So he's still mad at me, Sarutobi said in a sad voice. Kurenai scowled at the Hokage. Well, you didn't visit them after the attacks. He looked up to you, and then you chose to not even go to see them. They broke 5 of his ribs in his right arm, luckily the Kyuubi healed him. This village has turned its back on a hero, and he feels you did too. Added to that the scroll incident and you're fighting an uphill battle with them, Kurenai admitted with a sigh. He doesn't hate you, though. He is just deeply disappointed and hurt. You kept them in the dark about things you shouldn't have, Kurenai chided. You know as well as I do that there are things to be considered, politics is one of them. The council in a concession to my law, and forbade me from revealing his heritage until he made Genin for his first scroll and Junin for the second scroll, Sarutobi admitted. Kurenai shook her head. And we all know how well they kept his secret from the village. How about how they have pushed for the banks and business to treat him? He either isn't allowed into places or is overcharged for inferior quality goods and foods. Why do you think he buys so much ramen? He knows now the nutritional value of it, and yes, he does like the flavor, but thanks to them his diet may have ruined his growth. Apparently Hinata and Haku have worked on changing his diet, so that he gets the proper nutrition he needs. Also, have you investigated the deaths of his family? I'm sure he will be asking. He currently assumes that you haven't and wants to give you a little more time, Kurenai admitted. Yes. The investigation is nearly complete in both cases. I'm afraid there can be no prosecution though, Sarutobi stated. Kurenai looked surprised. How can you and the council protect murderers? She demanded. By the persons who perpetrated the crimes already being dead, they were Uchiha, Sarutobi admitted. How convenient. Naruto will not be pleased about that. He might even turn Sasuke into a eunuch, if he finds out that Sasuke's family had something to do with their deaths and more than likely the closing of several of the Uzumaki clan accounts. He also is not pleased with the council, and I hope you remember what happened at the bank, Kurenai reminded Sarutobi. Yes, I remember. The council was furious that he now has access to the money from the Uzumaki clan. They wanted to immediately seize the funds and put them into the village general fund. I stopped it, stating that they would be stealing from refugees from another village. This stopped them, as they didn't want to tarnish the village's reputation, Sarutobi stated angrily. If word got out how we treated Naruto, the son of one of our Hokages, and that he was a Jinchuriki, there wouldn't be much left to our village's reputation. Is there anything else, as I have to talk to Iruka-san to get the test ready for the 3 of them tomorrow? Kurenai asked in a neutral tone. Sarutobi shook his head, and said, no, that will be all for now. Report here before you go and test them in the morning. Naruto, Hinata, and Haku climbed the stairs to the door. I hope Otusan is okay, Haku commented to no one in particular. He will be fine. We will check on him tomorrow. He gave up without a fight and gave no resistance, so he should be fine. He knew that this would happen. I'm just hoping that Sensei is released, Naruto admitted, as he put a reassuring hand on her shoulder and smiled warmly. Naruto opened the door, letting the girls lead the way into the single-bedroom apartment. Hinata suddenly gasped and Naruto ran in quickly. What's wrong, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked, as he looked around for a thread only to find the interior of his apartment had been changed. The kitchen was now larger with a newer fridge and more counter surfaces than before. There was a solid oak table with 4 chairs. The expanded living room had a couch and newer television on a stand. The 3 wandered down into the bedroom to find it also enlarged with a queen-size bed. They left the bedroom for the bathroom, which was cozy for 2 before now could fit all 3 of them in comfort at the same time, with a couple showers, 2 toilets, and a large bath. They found stairs leading down, near a storage closet. The area below appeared to be a workshop, training dojo. It was not big enough to do jutsu, but they could practice taijutsu and weapons training down in this area. Naruto whistled. Looks to me like the old man wants to get back on our good side, doesn't it, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked, as Hinata nodded. Kurenai knocked on a door to have it opened by Iruka. Hello Kurenai-san. What can I do for you? He asked groggily. Kurenai smiled, and said, they came back today. Kurenai nodded, as Iruka's eyes asked if it was true, and continued, apparently Naruto has gotten himself into more trouble. Uruka laughed. What did he do this time? I hope Hinata-chan isn't pregnant, Uruka stated worriedly. Kurenai smiled, shook her head and chuckled lightly. No, she isn't. No. Naruto now has brought back Zabuza Momochi and is also engaged to his daughter. They were also all his students. They met up with him along the way and he trained them, Kurenai explained, as she entered Uruka's apartment at his bidding. Zabuza gave himself up at the gates without a fight, but told Naruto to take care of Haku-chan. Oh, and do not spread that Haku is a girl or Naruto will be quite angry, as will Hinata-chan. And now for the reason I came by. You need to get 3 genin graduation exams ready by tomorrow so that we can test the 3 of them, Kurenai said. Okay, I can do that. I have a few left over from the last exams, Uruka replied. So, how are they really doing? And what can you tell me about this Haku girl? Naruto looked at the fridge and stood in awe, and said, fresh food and none of it spoiled. Haku was worried about her future husband, if he reacted to fresh food in this way. Naruto-kun, she asked. Yes, Haku-chan, he replied. Why are you impressed by fresh food? Haku asked knowing that Naruto would answer, but she was not ready for the answer he would give. Haku-chan, please sit down, there are few things we need to discuss, Naruto said in a worried voice, and this only amplified Haku's worry. There's something I need to tell you about me and want you to hold judgment until after you have heard me out, Naruto said and then sighed, as he prepared himself to begin. Hinata moved up and began to rub his shoulders. Haku now knew this was important. Haku-chan, I need to know what you know about Biju and Jinchuriki. Haku contemplated the question before giving an answer. She began, Biju are tailed beasts that have ravaged the elemental nations from time to time. Jinchuriki are those people have been used to stop those rampages, by having the beasts sealed within them. Naruto nodded, do you know how old I am? Haku smiled, yes, Naruto-kun. You will be 13 in a couple weeks, Haku answered happily. Naruto weakly smiled at Haku, have you heard of the Kyuubi? He asked, but she heard the quiver in his voice. Yes, it is considered the strongest of the Biju, and it attacked Konoha about 13 years ago. The realization hit Haku and her smile faded to a frown. Oh, I'm so sorry, Naruto-kun. You're the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, aren't you? She asked timidly, as she put her hand over her mouth. Naruto nodded, as Hinata continued to try to relax Naruto, and then she asked, are you afraid of him now that you know his biggest secret? Hinata asked timidly. Haku shook her head, as tears streamed down her face, no. I don't hate Naruto-kun. How could I hate the boy that I love? Naruto looked up at this statement, hope shone in his eyes, as Hinata smiled warmly at Haku. As you know, I was also spurned because of something I couldn't control. You have heard of the bloodline purges in the land of water, right? Haku asked knowing that they would have some knowledge if only a little. Naruto and Hinata both nodded. Haku continued, those in water with bloodlines are hated and hunted. My mother had one of these bloodlines, the Hyouden, or ice element bloodline. I of course didn't know this as she hid herself in an attempt to have a normal life. She met a man, and fell in love, they had a child, me. I grew up a happy child, until my bloodline began to surface. As a child, I didn't know I was doing anything that was considered wrong, my mother found me and told me to never do it again. Unfortunately my father had also found out and murdered my mother. Later that day, I found her dead at home, after I had come home from playing outside, Haku recounted, as the tears continued to flow. My father and several of the villagers found me at home and I had to defend myself. Haku's voice quivered, as she spoke. Naruto woke up first and attempted to and succeeded at extracting himself from both girls, as nature was calling very loudly. He left the room, but didn't notice 2 shadows follow him to the bathroom. He stood relieving himself and turned when he was done, only to see both girls looking at him with his boxers pulled down. Naruto sighed, as he knew he was now in trouble and quickly pulled up his boxer and flushed the toilet. So are you now happy women? Naruto asked teasingly. Haku moved over and kissed him solidly on the lips, then backed off as Hinata followed suit. Seeing you or not, it doesn't matter. We're happy to be with you, Naruto-kun, Haku exclaimed, as Hinata nodded agreement. You may remain and join us in getting ready for today, as we have already seen you. It is only fair that we return the favor, and no, we will not be doing anything until the marriage if we can help it, Haku teased lovingly. Naruto smiled, as he walked back into the bedroom and got out his clothes for the day. Haku and Hinata followed suit, as they grabbed 3 towels. They entered the bathroom and cleaned themselves. All 3 blushed profusely, as they attempted to hold back nosebleeds. Naruto had a harder time as he also couldn't conceal his erection. The 3 left the bathrooms with their virginity intact, if only the physical portion. All 3 dressed in silence. Naruto put on his new black, orange, and white outfit. The shirt and pants were modeled after a tiger and its stripes. Hinata wore dark purple pants with a striped lavender and dark striped coat. Haku wore a blue and brown patterned battle kimono. All 3 wore black sandals. Naruto smiled, as he placed breakfast on the table. See, I told you I could find a good outfit that had orange on it and it should help me with camouflage, he exclaimed. Hinata giggled, as Haku laughed. Yes, Naruto-kun, you did, Haku replied. Naruto shot a concerned look at Haku, and asked, I hope the wrapping aren't too tight and restrict your breathing or movement. Haku smiled and kissed Naruto, as she sat down. Thank you for your concern, Naruto-kun. I'm used to wearing them now, as I usually don't wear them at night. It does limit my stamina some, but it also helps to push me harder to increase it also. I also think I do better when I play as a boy. Hinata-chan can act like a girl, as we will need to keep up the perception of a 2 male, 1 female squad, if we want to be shinobi for Konoha, Haku said, reminding Naruto. Naruto sat down and began to eat after Hinata had also seated herself and she also began to also eat. The next hour was spent going over possible answers for questions on the written test, as both Haku and Hinata knew Naruto would have his biggest problem there. After cleaning up the dishes, the 3 left the apartment and locked up. They met Kurenai on the way to the academy. Are you 3 ready to take the test? I'm sure you should be able to pass the practical skills, but I know Naruto might have problems with the written test, she pointed out. Naruto scowled, but then he smirked. Well, if there is a genjutsu I will destroy it and then do the written test. Otherwise, I should do fine, Naruto exclaimed. How is Zabuza-sensei, Kurenai-sensei? He asked in a concerned voice. Kurenai looked up, and thought for a second. Last time I saw him, about 30 minutes ago, he was having a nice conversation with Ibiki. They actually seemed to be getting along, Kurenai commented in confusion, as the trio laughed. The group was greeted by Iruka at the academy. Morning, I hope you're ready for the test, Iruka commented, as the group quietly entered the academy. Iruka was disturbed by Naruto not proclaiming that he was going to pass the test without a problem. Naruto smiled, as he passed Iruka, and calmly said, I think I'm ready for the test, Iruka-sensei. This brought a smile to Iruka's face. Good. I hope you do better this time. I also made sure that there were no genjutsu on your paper, so you will not have to do genjutsu without that being on the test, Iruka said, as he attempted to reassure Naruto. The 3 were separated to different tables to take the test, in an attempt to make sure there would be no cheating. This had been a stipulation set down by the Hokage. All 3 waited for the signal to start. Begin, Iruka stated, as he sat down at the desk at the front of the room with Kurenai sitting in a chair next to him watching the 3. Both looked at each other, as Naruto smirked and both girls blushed. Both adults looked at each other and wondered what was going on. Naruto was blazing through the test sure of each answer until he saw ice forming on his desk. The ice formed the kanji for, good luck, love Haku and Hinata. Naruto smirked, as he knew that Haku had done this at the prodding of Hinata. Naruto finished the test just after Haku and Hinata turned over their papers. Iruka was surprised that Naruto had finished so quickly. The questions were somewhat harder than the last genin exams they had taken. Iruka looked at the three, and asked, "Are you all done with your tests? Do you need to double-check your answers?" He got nods to his first question and all three shook their heads to the second question. Iruka collected the tests and quickly graded them. He was impressed all three had perfect tests, although Naruto's essay was a little lacking. His answer for what is the Hokage's job was short and concise, but Naruto added a commentary to the end about the third attempting to make up for something that he should have never had to do in the first place, brought a smile to Iruka's face. All three moved to the dojo for taijutsu test. Iruka decided that he would test them himself with Naruto first, Haku second and Hinata third so that he could recover if she used Juken style. Naruto's taijutsu was sloppy, but well above the academy requirements. Haku's taijutsu was concise and left little for him to falter on. Hinata's taijutsu was much improved. He had heard about her match with Aim and wondered what had happened to improve both Naruto and Hinata's skills so much. Kurenai was also pleased, as she noticed that Naruto and Hinata were more relaxed in their fighting styles and wasted less effort with their strikes and blocks. While Naruto's still needed a lot of improvement, it was still quite an improvement from when she left them in the coastal town. She would have to thank Zabuza for training them so well. Given what I've seen so far, none of you should have any problems with passing this exam, but don't let it go to your heads, Iruka complimented, but his warning was directed at Naruto, who just gave a big foxy grin. Next, was the weapons test and Naruto looked at the training dummies. You got rid of the one with magnets, didn't you? Naruto asked, as Iruka nodded. How many do we need to throw and what type, as we have brought our own weapons, Iruka-sensei? You know, so we don't get junk, no offense, but after last time I want to be sure about what we are doing, Naruto commented, as Iruka nodded. You will need to hit the targets with 10 shuriken, 10 kunai, and 10 senbon. There are a possible 30 points in this portion. Yeah, I know makes the math easier for grading, Iruka admitted, as he rubbed his finger under his nose. Naruto began to laugh as the girls began to giggle. We have enough targets for all of you to use one target for each type of weapon. We want you to hit the targets, not critical locations. This is an accuracy test, not a test to find out if you know how to or disable, Iruka pointed out, as the three lined up and pulled out shuriken. All three studied the targets for a minute then threw their shuriken. They moved on to the next dummy and followed the same procedure, as they did for the last set of dummies. Iruka moved to the dummies and scored then, while Naruto had the lowest, with score 28 out of 30, they all scored near perfect. He appeared to be lacking skill with senbon. The three collected their weapons and waited for the ninjutsu test. This test went quicker than before as all three did the transformation technique at the same time. The substitution technique went quickly too, as all three just used chairs around the room to replace with themselves. Naruto looked sheepishly at Iruka. Do I have to do a regular clone? Iruka shook his head. I need you to make at least 3 battle-ready clones, either one at a time, or as a group, Iruka replied, as Naruto sighed in relief. Haku made 3 water clones, as Hinata made 1 water clone and 2 standard clones, Naruto made 5 shadow clones. Iruka smiled, as he looked at Kurenai, and said, you all pass with near or perfect scores. Naruto lost 2 points on the weapons testing, otherwise you all passed with perfect scores. I might add that you all did better than the Rookie of the Year, Iruka commented, as he knew Naruto would be pleased to know that he beaten Sasuke. Naruto and the girls smiled, as they heard the news. They weren't surprised, but were happy. Kurenai stood and looked them over. Meet me at Training Ground 7 in 5 minutes. There we will conclude the genin test, Kurenai said, as she disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Iruka looked up and saw all 3 make a single hand seal and disappear in a swirl of leaves. When did they learn that one? Uruka questioned, as he began his report to the Hokage. Kurenai sat on the training log waiting for her 3 charges to enter the area. She was quickly surprised when all 3 appeared in swirls of leaves. So you have learned that technique. Good, but it is only good for leaving an area, and isn't a good one for combat, Kurenai commented. Now we will begin your last test to become genin. I don't normally use this test, but the Hokage insisted that I should, Kurenai said, as she pulled out 2 bells. The genin test fails out 66% of all those that pass the academy test. So as it stands, I'm adjusting it so that 2 of you can become genin and 1 of you will go back to the academy. I need you to come at me with the intent to. Naruto scratched his head. Kurenai-sensei? Naruto queried. Kurenai nodded, and replied, yes, Naruto. What is it that you need? Well, there are 2 things. First, either we all pass or we all fail, he said, as both Haku and Hinata nodded their agreement at his comment. Second, how in the heck could we hope to beat a Junin? Delay maybe, not a chance. I know we are good, but we aren't that good. Even if you're not at Zabuza-sensei's level, all 3 of us have no chance. I know you're a genjutsu specialist, my weakness. If say your taijutsu is at high chunin level, all 3 of us might have a chance to scratch you, but beat you, no, Naruto replied with much conviction. What Naruto-kun is trying to say is that, while we are skilled and work well as a team, but we cannot compete with a Junin, and we know it. We could give you a run for your money, but we know we would ultimately lose, as we lack both the training and the experience to fight on even close to an even playing field, Hinata explained, as Haku nodded. Kurenai looked angry. So either all of you pass or all of you fail, is that correct? She asked, as all 3 nodded. Very well then, I have no choice. Kurenai paused for dramatic effect, then she smiled, and said, you all pass, but I still want to do an assessment of your skills. So we will have a battle. All 3 genin nodded. They waited for Kurenai to make a signal, begin. She proclaimed, as the 3 disappeared. Good, they all have hidden well for genin. Naruto must be having problems with hiding his chakra, as I know where he is, but Haku and Hinata have hidden well. No chakra signature or traces of them otherwise, Kurenai thought to herself. Naruto appeared on the small creek running through the training grounds. You're not hiding very well, Naruto, Kurenai proclaimed. Naruto smiled and ran through several hand seals, and said, hidden mist jutsu. As mist suddenly erupted from the stream and encompassed the area. The visibility was almost nothing, as Kurenai couldn't even see her hand in front of her face. Kurenai suddenly felt a touch on her right shoulder and felt her arm go limp. Kurenai felt the next attack coming and jumped out the way, as the area she had just occupied was filled with Senbon. She landed only to have to jump again. The mist lessened, but was still thick. Kurenai reached out with her senses to hear the next set of Senbon came in. She jumped to find herself landing on the water with a splash. This game of cat and mouse has to end or they will beat me, she thought in a near panic. She was impressed by the strategy they had come up with. Naruto would conceal their movements while Hinata snuck up on her and disabled her arm, taking away her ability to do jutsu. Lastly, using Haku's accuracy as long-range support, I'm just worried if they use either shadow clones or shadow clone shuriken jutsu to spam the area with either clones or weapons. That might just me. Not able to take on a Junin as a team, my foot, Kurenai complained mentally. Do you give up, Kurenai-sensei? Naruto asked, but his voice came from all round her. I surrender, Kurenai proclaimed, as the mist fell and she was surrounded by 100 Naruto. Hinata was standing on a tree next to Haku, both holding Senbon ready to throw them at a moment's notice. She shifted from her ready position. She then said, I'm impressed. You work well as a team, better than most. Were you trying to lull me into a false sense of security about your skills? Or did your skills truly increase by that much? She asked, truly wanting to know. Naruto scratched the back of his head, as his clones dispersed. Not sure what you mean, sensei, he admitted. Kurenai motioned for all of them to gather around and sit down near her in the training field. They all came and sat quickly. I was quite surprised when they were able to hide their chakra, but you weren't able to, Naruto, she explained. But when you did the mist jutsu, I figured you were going to use that to hide. Instead, Hinata went on the offensive and disabled my arm, while Haku sent Senbon in to disable me further. Then you also positioned me to be on the creek so that I would make more noise and thus be an easier target. You should be proud of yourselves. You beat a Junin within several minutes, even if you had me surrounded with Naruto clones. Also, if the clones know anything about Kenjutsu, then I would have been in big trouble. Will you accept me, as your sensei and authority? She asked. Naruto, Hinata and Haku all nodded agreement, as they agreed to follow Kurenai. Naruto, Haku and Hinata were all dressed in white kimonos and sitting under a waterfall, as Kurenai supervised their advanced chakra control training. Naruto seemed to have the biggest problem meditating, either something was bothering him or he just couldn't concentrate. Naruto, you need to relax and allow your chakra to flow, use your chakra to shield yourself from the water, Kurenai instructed. Naruto knew Kurenai was correct, but there was something just beyond his grasp causing him not to be able to concentrate. He was at ease, but every time he would relax and try to concentrate his chakra to his shoulders and head, it would build, then suddenly it would burst out. It wasn't a big burst, just enough for him not to be able to do the exercise. After what seemed like the 100th time this happened, he opened his eyes, and said, Kurenai-sensei, my chakra doesn't seem to flow right, it seems to come in waves. Kurenai, Haku, and Hinata were all surprised by this statement, but Kurenai wanted to get to the bottom of this problem, so, she said, Hinata, use your Byakugan and watch Naruto do this exercise. Hinata nodded and activated her Dujutsu. Naruto relaxed and began the exercise. She was surprised that she had not noticed this before during their earlier training, but Naruto was right. His chakra did flow in waves like a heartbeat, as best as she could explain it. She looked closer only to find the wave caused by concentrated chakra that was wrapped around a small amount of red chakra. Naruto-kun is correct, in a way, she explained. Kurenai was confused, and asked, what do you mean, Hinata? Naruto-kun's chakra has dense chakra that is surrounding Kyuubi chakra, as it passes through his system. The chakra surrounding the flakes of Kyuubi chakra is denser than his regular chakra. There is a rhythm to it though, she answered. Naruto continued to try to focus. As he began to feel a wave coming on, he lessened the chakra output. Hinata watched in amazement, as Naruto appeared to be getting the rhythm of his chakra and the chakra began to shield him from the falls. Suddenly, a large pulse went ripping through his coils and his concentration was lost. Naruto couldn't understand, until he heard a yawn in his head. After the yawn, the rhythm became softer and less intense. Naruto opened his eyes and found himself sitting in a tunnel, more like a sewer system with a small amount of water on the floor. He sniffed the air, and found it to be stale and held a light mildew smell, but not the smell of an actual sewer. He stood and began to search around. Naruto came to an opening that was larger than any others than he had found so far. He entered to see an enormous room. The ceiling was so high as to be out of his view. Two large barred doors stood in front of him. He also noticed a paper stuck at the cusp of the gate doors that said, seal. He continued forward not knowing what or who was behind said seal. He knew, though. He looked into the area behind the bars only to see darkness. He listened carefully and heard rhythmic breathing coming from behind the bars. Must be the fox, he thought to himself. Suddenly a pair of eyes opened, they had red pupils, and had an eerie glow to them. You would be right on that one, you pathetic excuse of a mortal. A booming voice came from inside the cage. So this is where you hide yourself, fox? He asked. The eyes elevated to the middle of the cage before a toothy grin appeared. The fox then spoke, so what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? You're messing up my chakra. Quit it, Naruto demanded. The fox chuckled, and said, I have done no such thing. I like your spunk, though. Seek out the other seals upon yourself, you will find your answer there. Now, disturb me no more, as we have no need of each other as of yet, Kyuubi ordered, and laid its head down and closed its eyes. Naruto shook his head, and sat down. He closed his eyes, and then felt the water hitting him again. Naruto opened his eyes only to see 3 sets of worried eyes, one brown, one other white with a lavender tinge, and the final set were red. Naruto smiled, as he looked at the girls he had come to care for so much. What's wrong? He asked. Hinata brushed away the water near her eyes. Either she was crying or the water from the falls was in her eyes, Naruto didn't know which. Hinata lunged forward and embraced him in a tight hug. She then said, the red chakra increased and you would not respond to our calls, we were so worried. Naruto returned the hug, and replied, I got to meet the fox, if only for a moment. It said that it wasn't the cause of the fluctuations in mine and its chakra. Kurenai had heard what Naruto had said. This worried her that he had both talked to the demon and also that it had told him that it wasn't the reason for the fluctuations. What did it say, Naruto? She asked. Naruto took a deep breath, and said, it said that I need to seek out the other seals upon myself, whatever that means. Kurenai was definitely worried now. If Naruto told her that there were other seals on him, it would take some time to figure out what was going on. We'll need to talk to the Hokage about these seals, Naruto, Kurenai said. Naruto scowled, and asked, what if he is the one who put some seals on me? How can I trust him after what he has done and failed to do? Kurenai shrugged, and said, how do we know the fox is telling the truth? Naruto snickered, and replied, it had just woken up and didn't really want to talk to me. Kurenai was happy to have dodged the question about trusting the Hokage, but she did want some answers. I want you girls to take Naruto home and go over him with a fine-tooth comb. Search every inch of him for seals. I know he is studying them, but I want to know if there are any others, other than the seal the Kyuubi is trapped in, she ordered. Naruto sighed, as both Hinata and Haku blushed at the prospect of doing a strip search of Naruto. All 3 answered the order with, hi. Now head home and do the search, have him focus chakra while you search. I would also use chakra on his body to try to reveal any hidden seals, Kurenai suggested. The 3 changed out of their wet clothes and headed home, and Kurenai quickly headed to the Hokage's office. As soon as they got home, Naruto became very nervous. Girls, I didn't want to have you guys, he said, in an embarrassed tone. Haku blushed and took off her kimono and wrappings, and said, does this put you more at ease, Naruto-kun? She asked, standing only in her panties. Naruto held his composure for a moment until he turned to see Hinata, who was also only in her panties. Naruto fell backwards, as blood streamed out of his nose. Hinata turned to Haku, and asked, do you think we overdid it a little? Haku nodded, as Hinata continued, let's get him stripped and on the bed so we can do the exam. Haku and Hinata proceeded to strip Naruto and then carefully inspect him, as he lay unconscious. The girls became serious. As the minutes passed, they found only one seal at the base of his neck. Haku carefully copied it down on a scroll they had set to the side so that they could have Naruto help them understand what it did. Naruto finally woke up about 20 minutes later. What happened? The last thing I knew, both of you were nearly and. Naruto immediately covered his eyes and blushed. Hinata and Haku giggled at Naruto, and Hinata said, dear sweet Naruto-kun, we were, but not right now, as we have found a seal. Naruto sighed relief, but also wondered if he should have worried about seeing the girls in that state of undress, as he had already seen them before. Haku touched his arm and looked into his eyes. We need you to gather some chakra so that we can continue the exam, Naruto-kun, she said kindly. Naruto and the girls woke ready for a meeting with the Hokage and their assignments for missions. They were disappointed, as it appeared that they needed to do D-ranked missions to improve teamwork and improve their skills. Naruto initially complained until the Hokage handed him several new scrolls that he had apparently missed when he entered the vaults. Needless to say, Naruto was happy to get more scrolls from his parents, as they were addressed to him from both of them, and even a few were even from his aunt. The Hokage also said that the investigation was almost complete, but it appears that most of the guilty parties were now dead and unreachable for prosecution. Naruto handed a copy of the scroll that identified the seals and notes on the ones that they had found last night, to the Hokage in the hopes of getting some new information on the seals and possibly breaking them. Sarutobi read the notes and explained to Naruto, from what he could decipher about the seals, which was only a little more than Naruto had. He also said that he would summon Jiraiya, Konoha's resident seals master, to help in the investigation. Sarutobi again apologized to Naruto for the mistreatment. Naruto accepted the apology, but not after complaining about the abuse, rather vocally. For the next few weeks the team did several D-ranked missions a day. They quickly got a reputation for 1. Catching the demon cat, named Tora quickly, with an ice cage, and for their work at gardening. Also the Inuzuka seemed to call upon them frequently for work at their kennels. This gave Naruto time to catch up with Kiba and find out about his team. Kiba also found out about Naruto's team's little secret. So how is it working with two girls, Naruto? Kiba asked. Naruto looked both startled and surprised all in one. What do you mean two girls? He asked timidly. Kiba laughed, and said, "It's okay Naruto, her secret is safe with my clan," he said, as he nodded towards Haku, and then continued, "and I'm sure that the rest of my team will also keep it a secret too." He smiled and pointed at his nose, and said, "You know we can smell things better than most. I will admit she hides it well, but we can still smell her scent. Mom and sis know about it too. They know you're a friend and that they're good girls. That's why we keep on hiring your team. It also helps that you guys do good work," he exclaimed, as he chuckled. Naruto sighed in relief, and said, "Thanks Kiba, you're a good friend." Kiba laughed. "Don't sweat it. So, are they both yours? Or can I ask her out on a date?" he asked with a blush. Naruto laughed this time, and replied, "I'm betrothed to both of them, sorry." Kiba couldn't hide his surprise. Both of them? How? He asked, wondering how this kid had both the worst and the best luck at odd intervals. Hinata-chan and I have been betrothed since soon after her birth, and Haku-chan only happened a couple months ago, Naruto admitted. Doesn't Hinata have a problem with you having to be married to both her and Haku? Kiba asked, as he was worried for his other friend. Naruto shook his head, and said, "Nope, they came to an agreement, and Zabuza-sensei gave me no options in that one, other than marrying them both and protecting both the girls he considers his daughters. So both Hinata and I accept it. Haku doesn't seem to mind either." Kiba blushed, elbowed him, and then whispered, "So, have you gotten any action from either of them?" Naruto's eyes went wide, as he yelled, "What?" Kiba turned to the girls to make sure they hadn't noticed and weren't coming over. He then said, "Keep it down, Naruto. I was only wondering, geez." Naruto wore a look of disgust. He then spoke in an even tone, and said, "I would never take advantage of either of them. I love them both, and we're too young for that just yet. That may happen, but not for a while. Man Naruto, you're just boring. If I had two hot girls ready to marry me, I would be all over them," Kiba exclaimed. Naruto laughed, and replied, "And your mother would you for having pups too early." He then gently shoved Kiba in the shoulder with a huge grin. Kiba scratched the back of his head and then laughed. "I guess you're right. Either mom, sis, or the girls would stop me," he admitted. Soom came over and ruffled Kiba's hair, and said, "And don't you forget it, pup. I'm impressed with you, Naruto-kun. You've proven you're going to be a good alpha. Keep those two safe and you'll be a happy man." Naruto blushed at the compliment, and replied, "You bet." The next week saw their first C-ranked mission, clearing out bandits from the local area. Guy's team had the record for clearing bandits before, but Kurenai's team bested it by a full day and even had more bandits to deal with. The team also worked on finding some wind-based jutsu for Naruto and Haku. Naruto also went through the scrolls that Sarutobi gave him and found them to be more personal correspondence to him from his parents about their thought and such to their as yet unborn son. Naruto was still angry with his father for what he did, but also understood to a point why he did it, not that most of the village deserved his protection. On a side note, Naruto was allowed to binge on ramen once a week, as Haku and Hinata understood it helped in replenishing his energy. With all the carbohydrates in the ramen, they just worried about the possible side effects of ramen on his system, as they had done so much to get him on a healthy diet and improve his general health. Hinata hated to admit it, but Naruto's body had improved over the last several months and Haku agreed. When Hinata and Kurenai had seen him at the hot springs, he was just skin and bones, with little definition other than some fat on his face that hid his malnourishment. Since the diet though, Naruto had put on some weight, nearing what his should be, and growing about a half-inch in height. His muscles also began to show signs of growing, where before he was stringy, now he showed some definition and his ribs didn't show through his skin, as if he were emaciated. During this time Naruto also met a Junin named Hayate, who seemed to have a way with swords. They became friends and would occasionally spar. Zabuza's sentence was handed down by the village tribunal. He would serve 3 months in prison and then be put on the supervision of a Junin, namely Kurenai, to help her with her team. Team 7 had returned and gave a report to the Hokage that didn't put Naruto's action in a good light. The civilian council tried to make this a problem, but they were blocked by Sarutobi, as Naruto had become a shinobi of the leaf. Sasuke seethed at the fact that Naruto wouldn't be punished for his affront. The team also spent time in the library. Naruto of course was under a transformation jutsu to look female and not be caught by the librarian. Naruto also found out that the Chunin exams were going to start in a little more than a month and that teams only had to meet a few requirements. The final thing that happened during this time was that Naruto and the girls decided to try to spend some time away from each other, so that they would value their time together outside of missions. Naruto spent time with Kiba, Shino, Choji and Shikamaru, among others like a crazy lady named Anko. Both seemed to be kindred spirits, as both were despised for nothing that they had done and Anko was a friend of Kurenai. Naruto and Anko went on a near sadistic spree of pranks on those around the village that had wronged either of them. Naruto was of course blamed, but thanks to Anko, no one could prove that he had done it. Hinata and Haku found others to spend time with, including Anko, when she wasn't with Naruto, Ino, as neither could stand to be around Sakura, occasionally several of the branch members of the Hyuga clan, and surprisingly Hiashi and Hanabi. Kurenai also entered them into the Chunin exams, as Zabuza was nearing release from prison. She thought it would be good for the 3 of them to take the exams, as their skill level was that of Chunin, and Naruto had grown, at least some. Training continued as normal for the team. Naruto and Haku decided to take a little extra time and get some extra practice before the Chunin exams. Naruto and Haku continued to spar and failed to notice 2 people approach and hide in a tree fairly close by. Kakashi and Sasuke both watched with interest, as there had been no disciplinary actions taken towards Naruto for the assault on them for the wave mission. Haku and Naruto were both sweating and panting as they moved to the next level for training. Haku moved through several one-handed seals, as Naruto scowled, swallowed hard and complained, "Aw shit. No fair, Haku-chan." Sasuke and Kakashi looked at each other at the "chan" statement. They both realized that Haku was actually a girl instead of a boy. What happened next surprised them both. Ninja art. Demonic ice mirrors. Haku exclaimed, as water in the air froze and became a dome of mirrors surrounding Naruto. With a pleading look she asked, "Please Naruto-kun, I must maintain my edge." Naruto visibly sighed and pulled out his sword. Haku disappeared into one of the mirrors and Naruto began to defend himself with his sword from multiple angles. Naruto occasionally got hit by a Senbon, but for the most part he was able to deflect most of the Senbon. Naruto smiled, as the attacks lulled for a moment. He sheathed his sword, pulled out the Senbon, made a hand seal, and proclaimed, Shadow Clone Jutsu. 15 Naruto appeared and ran towards the walls, as the real one stayed in the center. All 15 disappeared in clouds of smoke only to have 20 replace them. Naruto increased the numbers until there were 40 attacking the sides, but none seemed to make it to the edge. Kakashi whistled quietly. Well over 500 shadow clones, impressive. Sasuke scowled, and asked, what's so impressive? They're just clones, right? Kakashi shook his head, and replied, no, they're shadow clones, those are real clones, not illusions. And before you ask, no, I will not teach you that jutsu, you haven't the chakra capacity to use it. The two continued to watch for another half hour, as Naruto continued to make groups of 40 clones, only to have them destroyed by Haku. Sasuke came up with a question, how can she maintain those mirrors? Kakashi smiled under his mask, she apparently has a bloodline, just like you, but while yours deals with the eyes, hers has to do with ice. Sasuke gained a feral grin and jumped down from the tree, as the ice mirrors dissipated. His approach caught both Naruto and Haku's attention. Sasuke slipped a Senbon out of his pouch along with a piece of paper, and rolled the paper onto the Senbon. Hey Dobi, fight me, he demanded. Naruto was breathing heavily, but quickly replied, no. Sasuke smirked, as his wrist twitched, unnoticed by either Naruto or Haku. He then said, I'll report her to the council, and demand that they betroth her to me, so that I can rebuild the Uchiha clan. Naruto began to laugh, hard. You think you can come here and threaten fellow shinobi? He asked. You really have lost it. Haku's face darkened, as she said, you have some nerve Uchiha. You threaten not one, but two shinobi. Does your ego know no bounds? Haku looked at Naruto, and then collapsed to her knees. She felt very weak at the moment and couldn't move any of her muscles. Sasuke smirked and looked at Naruto. He then said, I challenge you to a single spar. You win, I release her. I win, I get to keep her. Naruto shook his head, and said, no, her freedom isn't for you or me to decide. She is a friend, and I will protect her. He yelled, as he moved in front of Haku. Kakashi watched all that had occurred and wasn't sure how to handle it. Should he scold his student or allow the fight to continue? He decided to do nothing, and see where it went. Naruto took a weary taijutsu stance. Even though he was fatigued, he wanted to protect Haku. You've proven me right, he yelled sarcastically. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, and asked, how's that? Naruto's eyes narrowed and turned from warm blue to an ice blue. Because you've proven you really are a tem, he proclaimed. Sasuke, angered by the insult, threw a punch at Naruto's face, only to have Naruto duck and land a jab to his ribs. Sasuke staggered back a few steps and then retook his stance. Naruto jabbed with his right only to have it caught by Sasuke's left. Naruto then noticed several things. Sasuke had a huge smirk. Second, he had slapped his right hand on Naruto. Bare right arm. Third, Sasuke's eyes were now red instead of black. He had the Sharingan. Naruto felt his feet collapse out from underneath him, as Sasuke revealed a small paper seal on his arm that glowed green. What did you do, Tem? He asked weakly. Sasuke smiled at Naruto, and said, it's a paralysis seal. Neat little toy, don't you think? He asked, not really expecting an answer. I was given them a while back, by some silly woman who wanted something or other from me, he said, as he turned and looked Naruto directly in the eyes. You leave for a few months after failing the exam, and you come back with this beautiful sword, he exclaimed as he drew Naruto's sword, and Naruto growled at him. He then continued, not to mention you came back with two girls. Sasuke sighed, and continued, what really gets me is that you're a lot stronger than when you left, and worst of all, you get to be a genin, even after you failed the exam and attacked me. How did you pull it off? He asked. not really looking at Naruto. Naruto was gritting his teeth. Let us go, Tem. He ground out through his teeth. Sasuke laughed, as he leaned down and spoke into Naruto's ear, I'll take your sword, and your girl too. How do you feel about that? Naruto could only growl, as Sasuke stepped around Naruto, as if to use his leg as a brace. He then pressed the sword against Naruto's neck, and said, You said that you'd. Now I've done so also. He proclaimed, as he pulled the sword across Naruto's throat. Haku's eyes went wide, as she saw a spray of blood. Naruto fell over, as he looked sorrowfully at Haku. His eyes changed from sad for one instant to red, as the seal on his arm began to burn away. In the distance a female voice screamed out a single name, Naruto. Kakashi appeared next to Sasuke, and asked, What have you done? Sasuke ignored Kakashi and looked at Haku with a predatory grin. He then said, You're mine. He walked forward, as he heard Kakashi deflecting thrown weapons, and grabbed Haku putting her on his shoulder. He then said, Let's go. Sasuke froze, as waves of intent flowed over the area, and he dropped to his knees. Kakashi spoke up in a sweet voice. I think you had better leave her here. You're in enough trouble, as it is, he said, as he continued to block Senbon being thrown by Hinata. He'd better leave her, or there won't be anything left of him, if he doesn't, he thought, as he watched, red chakra float around Naruto. Naruto gurgled out something unintelligible. Why can't I move? What is this feeling? Sasuke asked no one in particular. Release Haku now, Uchiha. Or die, Hinata proclaimed, as she advanced and continued to throw Senbon. Kakashi was not sure what to do, but he did have to protect his student, otherwise he would die and the council would be very angry, even if it was his own fault. Naruto and Hinata stand down, now, or there will be trouble. Kakashi proclaimed. Naruto shook his head, as blood had covered the front of his jumpsuit, the cut on his neck still evident, but the bleeding had slowed significantly. Naruto pointed to Haku and then his sword, he then pointed at the ground in front of him. As Sasuke finally gotten used to the intent, he stood. A new voice rang out, Stand down Naruto Uzumaki, and Hinata Hyuga. That is an order. An Anbu with a sparrow mask ordered. Hinata looked at the man, as if he were insane, and asked, What? You're going to protect a kidnapper and an attempted murderer. The Anbu tilted his head and then looked at Sasuke, who had someone draped over his shoulder. She then continued, He attacked my fiancé with the intent to him, and now he's attempting to abduct my other teammate. Sasuke Uchiha, release the hostage. Sparrow ordered. Sasuke dumped Haku and then jumped away, taking Naruto's sword with him. Naruto attempted to intercept him, but was blocked by second Anbu, who showed surprise in his eyes, as Naruto still bled from the wound on his throat. Naruto turned to look for Kakashi, but noticed he has also fled the scene. Naruto fell to his knees and crawled over to Haku. He examined her and then pulled a Senbon from her arm. He showed it to the Anbu, as he cradled Haku in his arms. The Anbu looked at the Senbon and noticed the seal and shook his head. Haku performed a couple hand seals, as her hands were covered in green chakra, and she applied them to his injured neck. Explain yourself, Uzumaki. A third Anbu demanded. Naruto pointed to the still red mark on his throat, covered in blood. Hinata slid next to Naruto and turned angrily to the Anbu, and yelled, No, you explain yourselves. Is Sasuke Uchiha so privileged, that he can try to murder a fellow genin, steal a family heirloom, and abduct a genin from another team? We sensed his second chakra flare, so we came to investigate. The Anbu attempted to defend himself. Haku glared at the Anbu, and said coldly, If it weren't for the Kyuubi, Naruto-kun would be dead, and you'd be investigating a double murder, with an abduction that you'd have no idea had even occurred. I understand now why you don't trust them, Naruto-kun, Haku exclaimed, as she looked sorrowfully at Naruto. All three Anbu flinched, as if punched. Now, looking at him, we see that he was injured. We're sorry, But you must understand that we must worry about the Kyuubi getting released more than a simple assault. The man immediately regretted his calling this a simple assault. Naruto attempted to stand, but fell immediately. Hinata and Haku helped him up, and the three walked towards town. You idiot! Naruto-san, Haku-san, and Hinata-sama are all accusing Uchiha-san of attempted murder. Given the amount of blood, I would tend to agree. You two investigate the area. You bear, go talk to Kakashi, and I'll take them to the Hokage. Also follow up with Uchiha-san about a sword. I want it found, especially if it is the sword I think it is, a cat-masked Anbu ordered, as she began to follow the three children. Kurenai had met the group as they approached the Hokage tower. She didn't ask anything, as she could tell Naruto was furious, so were Haku and Hinata to a lesser extent. What really concerned her was the surprising amount of blood on the front of Naruto's clothes, which appeared to have originated at his throat, which bore a red line. She also noticed the Anbu following closely, keeping an eye out for trouble for her team. They entered the tower to find another Anbu with a bear mask standing at the door to the Hokage's office. He had Naruto's sword in hand, stained with blood. The door opened and they found Kakashi in the office. All three genin glared at him, but he appeared to brush off the glares as if they were nothing. The Hokage stood and moved quickly to Naruto, and asked, Naruto-kun, are you okay? Hinata glared at the Hokage, as she yelled, no he isn't. We wish to file assault, theft, attempted murder, and attempted kidnapping charges against Sasuke Uchiha. The Hokage glared at Kakashi, who this time had the decency to actually flinch. He motioned for the three to sit, as he took his chair, and asked, please tell me what happened. Sarutobi noticed the blood covering Naruto's front, but hid his concern, as he didn't want to upset the boy any further. Naruto lifted his head and pointed to his throat and made a slashing motion. He then held out his hand to the bear Anbu, who handed him his sword, as he then cleaned and sheathed it. He then lay back with a big gurgling sigh. Hinata kissed Naruto on the cheek and then turned to the Hokage and said, Sasuke Uchiha is a menace and should be put down, like the rabid dog he is. He's not that bad, he just has some anger issues. See, Naruto is okay now, Kakashi said, as he defended Sasuke. Naruto growled at Kakashi, as Haku placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Hataki-san, how long were you and Uchiha-tem in the tree? She asked angrily. An hour or so, although I must say that you have an interesting bloodline, Kakashi complimented, as Naruto again growled. So both you and Sasuke know that I have a bloodline and am female? She asked, as both Anbu gasped in shock. Kakashi nodded, and said, we watched both of you, it was impressive training. Naruto with his shadow clones, I lost count after about 1500, and you, with your ice mirrors. I was very impressed. So, you allowed your student to pick a fight with my teammate, after we had exhausted ourselves. He hit me with a senbon that had a paralysis seal on it, not allowing me to effectively defend my teammate. He also used a second seal to do the same to Naruto-kun. Why did you not stop it then and there? Haku asked. Well, I was shocked that he was able to stop Naruto so easily after the last encounter, Kakashi admitted. And when he placed Naruto-kun's sword at his throat, why not then? How about when he pulled it across his throat? Did you administer aid to a fallen comrade? Haku asked accusatorily. No, I was defending my student from an attack by your other teammate. She would have him, Kakashi shot back. Pity, you would have Naruto-kun die in his stead, when he didn't start the fight. Haku asked. It really wasn't a fight, Kakashi countered. Haku sighed, and said, no, it was a premeditated, attempted murder, abduction and after that, more than likely rape. Well, Kakashi was about to say, but was cut off. If Sasuke Uchiha comes near me again, I will damn the consequences. You were going to defend his actions, were you not? Haku asked, as her anger rose yet again. Kurenai had heard enough, and said, Kakashi, you should be ashamed of yourself. If Sasuke is guilty of even half of this, he should be put on trial. He attacked 2 of my students, with harmful intent, I might add. Kakashi sighed. He was fighting a losing battle with his students' actions. How could save this from becoming a debacle? Look, I'll keep Sasuke away from your team, if that makes you happy, he said, as a possible compromise. Naruto continued to fume in the back of the office, only to grab a scroll from his pocket and made sure that Sarutobi saw it. Sarutobi now knew Naruto was actually mad enough to destroy the foundation of Konoha on this incident. Kakashi, you and your student are hereby reprimanded. Attacks on fellow shinobi are especially frowned upon. Sasuke will have to go through a physiological evaluation before he will be called fit for duty again. Now get out of my sight and inform your student that if he comes near Kurenai's team again, he will be stripped of his status as a shinobi and left to the mercy of his fangirls. Do I make myself clear? He asked forcefully, as Kakashi blanched and nodded. He left quickly with no further comment. Hinata looked angrily at Sarutobi and said, Hokage-san, while we are appreciative of what you did for our living conditions, you still have a long ways to go in earning our trust. We will honor our vow to this village if it doesn't attack us. Haku sighed, as she again checked Naruto's throat, and said, even with the fox, he won't be able to talk for another day or so. That Tem did a number on his larynx. If I were better trained in healing, I could make the healing go quicker, she admitted. She then turned to Sarutobi and said, you in this village worship bloodlines, but also seem blinded by your own prejudice. Naruto-kun is the jailer, not the inmate, so why do your people act like he's the inmate? If he were, your village wouldn't exist right now. Sarutobi sighed, nodded and said, old ways die hard with old people. I know Naruto is Naruto. He reached into his desk and fished out several scrolls and handed them to Hinata, and said, these are for your husband-to-be, I hope they please him. I have others, but they are not set to be given until he turns 16 and he is ready to marry, I'm sorry. Hinata scowled, as she took the scrolls and put them into her weapons pouch. The team left the office right after receiving the scrolls. Kurenai asked what had happened. Haku explained what happened and thus began a flare in Kurenai's anger. Naruto smirked, as he walked over to a shop and purchased a bottle of pink hair dye. Hinata smirked at the same time, as if they both knew what he was going to do with the dye. I would hate to be Tem right now, Haku said happily. Kurenai looked at her, as if she had some idea of what Naruto was going to do. I would advise against aggravating Sasuke right now, she said, as she was almost certain that they were referring to him as the target. Naruto grinned even wider, as Kurenai's fear became even greater. Naruto and Hinata disappeared for a half an hour, as Kurenai and Haku went to lunch to discuss further training. 2 shadows moved through the Uchiha compound quietly and quickly. No one was there to see them enter Sasuke's home or even, as the 2 entered the bathroom, and then soon after left, as quickly as they had entered. Naruto was relaxing on the bed in just shorts, as he had just finished a shower and decided to relax and read the scrolls. The scrolls seemed to cover some jutsu, but most seemed to be personal correspondence between his parents. It also seemed to cover some tests that were run, and that Tsunade Senju would have to be consulted on. Naruto began to see a pattern. This Tsunade woman's name kept on coming up, and to that end he decided that he needed to contact her somehow and find out what she knew. An idea formed in his mind. A few hours later he was joined in bed by Hinata and Haku, as they prepared to rest for bed and the next day. Hinata and Haku missed Naruto not having his voice, as it was too quiet that evening. They understood that he needed time to heal and also some time to figure out what they needed to do next. The 3 followed their regular schedule, which was, wake up, take a group shower, get dressed, and then eat breakfast. Morning training was somewhat quiet, but also Naruto's voice was somewhat off, having almost fully healed. Right at the end of morning training the group was greeted by 2 groups. One was Team 7, and the second was an Anbu team. Team 7 caused Kurenai's and the Anbu team to break out in laughter. Sasuke's hair was now a dark shade of pink, as he now stood out almost as badly as his teammate with her normal pink hair. Sasuke appeared very angry. I hate you, Dobi. I'm going to get you charged with breaking and entering, he exclaimed. Naruto brought his laughter under control. So Tem, is that before or after you've read me the riot act? He asked jokingly in a broken voice. The others continued to laugh. As Sasuke seethed with anger, he moved forward to attack Naruto only to be intercepted by both Kakashi and one of the Anbu. Uchiha-san, no matter what your grievance is with Uzumaki-san, it is immaterial, as he has in his team, have been summoned to the village council, he said with authority. He turned to Naruto's team and continued, you will accompany us to the council chambers. Naruto and his team left a fuming Uchiha and Haruno. You know Sasuke, Naruto could have done much worse to you. He could have put hair remover in your shampoo, Kakashi said, as he pointed out what Naruto could have done. This sent a chill down the Uchiha's back. Sarutobi was livid, as he had done some work while Naruto was away, in an attempt to try to fix things for him, but the civilian council attempted to block him at every turn. Danzo wanted Naruto, and Haku handed to him to be trained, as weapons and used to be used as breeding stock for the next generation of super soldiers. With his tenant and her Kekkei Genkai, they would be the perfect mix for a new super clan, but without Naruto being at the head of it. Sarutobi was sickened by this opinion. The son of the former Hokage thought of only as breeding stock instead of a child and capable shinobi. Others in the council had pushed for Haku to immediately be married to the Uchiha boy or to several boys and then forced to have children. How these two items had gotten out were anybody's guess. The facts that Haku was both female and had a bloodline were not common knowledge, but living in a village of ninja did show that they had ways of getting information. Luckily only he knew that the girls were staying with Naruto and that he was engaged to both of them. The second item of interest was dealing with Zabuza. His interrogation had gone well and it appeared that he hadn't resisted during the talk with Ibiki and Anko. Items of note were that Zabuza was immensely loyal to Naruto, Haku, and Hinata, as if they were his children. This both pleased and disturbed Sarutobi. He was brought out of his thoughts by a knock at the council chamber doors, as they opened. Naruto and his team were escorted into a large meeting room with several clan head, village merchants, retired shinobi and finally the Hokage. Come in and take a seat, Sarutobi offered, as he pointed to 4 chairs situated at the opening of the U-shaped council table. Naruto noticed and recognized several of the people seated on the council. First was Hiashi, second was Shuza, father to one of Naruto's friends, Choji. He also recognized a few of the merchants, one who with pink hair who had refused to allow him into their store. Naruto sat in between Haku and Hinata, as she sat with Kurenai on her left. Sarutobi cleared his throat, and said, let's get this meeting started. What is the first order of business? A pink-haired merchant scowled at the gathered genin team and then spoke. It has come to the council's attention that you've gotten access to the Uzumaki accounts, is that true, Naruto? Naruto sighed and said with a raspy voice, as the head of the Uzumaki clan, and only remaining survivor, I'm entitled to those funds. And if you refer to me as demon again I will make sure your life is, as fun as mine has been, Naruto threatened. The woman gasped at his statement. How dare you threaten me, child? She yelled in rebuttal. Naruto smirked, and said, I'm not threatening. You've been a nuisance to me and refused service to the one who protects this village from the wrath of a demon. Prove that you're not one. She challenged. Naruto's whole team smirked, as he replied, simply put, if I were a demon, I would have destroyed this village several times over, after how I've been treated. Hiashi began to laugh out loud at Naruto's statement. This disturbed most, but several were also chuckling at the antics of the blonde genin. Enough, we're here to find out why you're accessing the Uzumaki clan accounts. You're just named after that clan, as a sign of respect, the woman said. Naruto shook his head, and said, no, I'm the son of Kushina Uzumaki, former head of the Uzumaki clan. As her son, and heir, with her passing, I am now the head of said clan. As for showing respect, what have you done for the last 12 plus years to show respect to my clan? You've made sure that I can't even go into regular stores. Your stores are off limits and your managers assault me if I even try to enter. So, don't go and insult me by saying you've honored my clan. How would you like it if I were to retire and go to say Iowa? He asked, as most of those gather blanched. Sarutobi spoke up at this point. Are you saying that you've never bought anything from Haruno-san's store? Naruto nodded, and replied, I've never been able to enter her store. Either she or her clerks chase me out with all sorts of weapons. Sarutobi frowned at this answer. Haruno-san, your store charges his family's account for regular clothing expenses, and he has just admitted to never having entered your store. Can you help me to figure out why you're stealing from the boy? The Haruno council member went from pale to ghost white, as she stammered out, but, Hokage-sama, he stole from our store and we're just getting back the money for the stolen merchandise. Naruto laughed, as he pointed to the woman, and said, You've stolen from me, and now that you've been caught, you want to try to say that I'm the thief. I accuse you of being a thief. We all know that foxes are masters of trickery. She yelled out, in an attempt to defend herself. Excuse me, Councilwoman Haruno, but did you see Naruto-kun's apartment before we left the village? Do you know what his wardrobe was before he went to the bank, which I might add had monies for him? Also, this very council had told the bank to not let him even enter. Is this how you honor the fourth sacrifice? Hinata asked. He's a monster. I for one am glad that he's no longer chasing my daughter. Sakura's mother stated. Monster. No, Jinchuriki, yes, and also sole heir to the Uzumaki clan. My clan sacrificed much to help your village, and this is how do you repay them? You, my mother and aunt. You steal from me and my clan. You accuse me of things I never did. Now, what do you and the rest of this foolish council want? Naruto asked angrily. Such insolence. How dare? Danzo started to say, but was interrupted. He dares, because he is right. Hinata proclaimed. Shut your mouth, branch wench. Danzo yelled back at her. Naruto was about to stand only to see Hiashi stand and look directly at Danzo, with his Byakugan activated. You will show respect to my daughter and future son-in-law. He rebutted. So the Hyuga are in league with this demon. The Haruno woman yelled. If he were an all-powerful demon, I would rather be on his side. If on the other hand he is, as I suspect, a Jinchuriki, then we as a village have done an unspeakable sin for harming an innocent boy, Hiashi said in a low tone, as most of the shinobi clan heads nodded agreement. He then looked directly at Danzo, and said, if you ever speak to my daughter that way again I will you myself, if Naruto-san doesn't do it first. Hinata took this moment to speak. How many of you have ever been around Naruto-kun for any length of time? How many of you have even tried to walk around the village as Naruto-kun? And as for you Baika Haruno, mother to the banshee that abused my Naruto-kun, you only have my deepest enmity. Baika was stunned as the intent rolled of the young Hyuga girl. How did my daughter abuse this thing? And why are disrespecting my daughter? She asked. Hinata frowned at the woman. I know of 81 separate occasions where your daughter assaulted Naruto-kun, for such a little thing as asking for a date. Is that how the Haruno act? I have not seen others act so. Usually a kind rebuke or maybe a strong word or two if they become insistent, is usually all that is needed. Your daughter on the other hand 3 more times did and with no regard for Naruto-kun's feeling denigrated and degraded him for the same reason I mentioned before. And as for the other merchants, you have stolen from Naruto-kun with no regard for whom you steal from, in the hopes of getting even with the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi is contained, yet you attack and abuse Naruto-kun for nothing he has done. Have you ever asked, why did the Yondaime choose him? Also, do you remember his wish for Naruto-kun? She asked pointedly, as Hiashi smiled proudly at his daughter. Naruto decided to speak up at this point, and said, so the great Konohagakure no Sato, the best of the shinobi villages, the most honorable of them, that is a total sham. Members of the council began to protest, but Naruto cut them off, and said, "You say you honor the fourth, yet you disregard his last, dying wish. The wish that I be seen as a hero for the burden I carry. What would happen to your village's precious reputation, if it were known that you treat children in such a fashion? Or better yet, that you actively went about destroying a hopeful academy student's learning? How about if the other countries learn how you treated a Jinchuriki? Most of the big countries have them, and I'm sure they are treated for the most part better than I've been treated. I'm sure that Iwagakure no Sato would love to have me, a trained, no thanks to you, Jinchuriki. The irony of having me working for them, the Jinchuriki that their greatest enemy created, and that their enemy village shunned." Naruto then looked directly at Choza, and said, "While I enjoy my time with your son, I haven't forgotten that you also called for my death during that incident. I'm sure that your son would be very disappointed with you if the facts in that case came to light." Choza lowered his head in shame, and replied, "I'm deeply sorry for my words said in the heat of the moment, Naruto-san." Naruto nodded, as he wanted to know what else the council had up its sleeves. Sarutobi coughed to get the attention of everyone in the chamber, and then said, "We are deeply sorry for your treatment, Naruto-kun, and ask for your forgiveness. There are also other matters that this council wants to deal with, that affect you and your team, Naruto-kun." Naruto nodded and sat back down, but continued to glare at the elders and civilian member of the council. Homura cleared his throat, and said, "Yes, Sarutobi, there is another matter to be addressed. The matter of Haku Momochi. The council has before it a vote on a betrothal measure to a one Sasuke Uchiha." Haku stood up and glared at the man, who nearly jumped out of his skin. Acing intent washed over him from the girl, and Naruto. It also didn't help when the temperature of the room fell several degrees in the matter of seconds. "What would I want being betrothed to that monster?" Haku asked. Koharu looked at her, and replied, "You're a female, am I correct?" Haku nodded to her question. She then continued her questions. "Sasuke-san is the most eligible bachelor of your age group and would make a good pair," she said. Haku shook her head, and said, "Only if you agree with kidnapping and possible rape, would he make a good mate for me. Yesterday he attacked both my teammate and myself, as he attempted to murder said teammate and then abduct me." Baika stood, and began to protest. "Uchiha-san would never do such a thing. He's an honorable shinobi." Haku glared at the council member, and said, "Yes, honorable enough to spy on a private spar, disable myself and my teammate with paralysis seals. And do you know what he did then? He stole a family heirloom, and then he attempted to slit the throat of my teammate. He even waited until we were tired from a long spar to attack. I thought that we would be safe within the confines of the walls of Konoha, but we were sadly mistaken. When Anbu arrived, they were about to let your honorable Uchiha go free, with me held on his shoulder, ready to take me to Kami knows where. So I refuse any type of union with that monster." Baika sat down, but appeared to brush aside Haku's arguments. "You're sitting next to the true monster," she said to no one in particular. Ice formed into kunai in Haku's hand, as she glared at Baika. "You would insult Naruto-kun. I should just you now and relieve the world of your ignorance," she said, with as much venom as she could muster. Homura decided it was time to get this finished, and said, "It is still needed, that we have an affirmation that you will be married around your 16th birthday, young lady." Haku turned to the man, glared and said, "I'm already spoken for. Now end this nonsense." Homura nodded at the statement. Next item on the agenda is to decide how much of the Uzumaki clan fortune is to be distributed to Naruto-san, he said in a level tone. Naruto looked at the man and growled. "As the head of the clan, it is all mine until we have more members, and then I shall divvy it out as needed," he replied. Koharu shook her head, and said, "No, little one, the monies are needed by the village, and as such should be given freely to the village. The village needs the money, while you do not. Like hell I would give up the money from my family to this village that keeps on proving that the fourth sacrifice was in vain, Naruto yelled in reply. Several gasps came from the assembled council, also several chuckles. I call for a vote to take 90% of the Uzumaki monies and transfer them to the village, Baika said with a smile on her face. Anyone who seconds will cause my clan to pull all our monies out of the bank, Sum said angrily. Along with my clans, Hiyashi said also, as the rest of the shinobi clans fell in line behind the Inuzuka and Hyuga clan heads. Naruto couldn't help but feel tears come to his eyes at the show of support from the shinobi clans. Naruto finally spoke up, and said, if this council in its infinite wisdom decides to take the money from my clan's accounts, I will immediately take all funds and turn it into a mission against said member. I will make your lives a living hell. Naruto's eyes turned from blue to purple, acing intent flowed off of him. The final vote was a tie, but Sarutobi had the final vote in the case of a tie. He voted to leave the Uzumaki clan's money in Naruto's hands, and have the village borrow the money if needed, but pay him back quickly if they did borrow them, and with interest for the time they were borrowed. Naruto didn't like it, but this way he held the purse strings of the council, thus giving him some semblance of control in village politics, not that he actually wanted that. Hope you liked the chapter and hated a couple of the characters. Dragon Noir. You will learn more about the seals in the following chapters. I gave you a hint of what they are, but might not have been totally truthful as Naruto still isn't a seal master. Get. What are you saying? You've got a problem with spelling and grammar, and doing this posting anonymously. Oh, and for your idea of making sense, all stories are O after the first word. Enough said to a heckler. Neosucius. No worries about Naruto becoming super strong or smart right off the bat. The seals will more explained over time and their elimination will help Naruto, but not make him into some super-powered ninja, he will have to work for that. The Wandering Soul of 1014. All in good time. Each seal has its purpose, and Naruto might not even be right about his knowledge of what they are and what they do. A reviewer. Naruto has a lot on his mind. While he is mad at the third, he is more disappointed in him not doing the right thing. Their relationship should improve, but the trust has been lost and will need to be rebuilt. Also, Naruto has lost his mask for the most part, as Zabuza broke him of the habit in non-fighting situations. P5YCH0. They got really lucky with their skills and the availability with water, as all are water jutsu users. Yes, if Kurenai went all out she could have won, but what would be the point if she ethered or had to take her team to the hospital, just for a trial, and she wouldn't have come out of it without a scratch.